Welcome to the November Movie Club, where we will review Felidae, or Felidae, if you prefer, a movie from 1994, a German movie that until yesterday had an English dub. So as of yesterday, November 25th, that is, it was available on YouTube. I was in the process of reviewing some scenes to compare the German original to the English dub, and then it disappeared 80% through. So I had to finish some other scenes somewhere else. But around 9:15 p.m. Eastern time, it disappeared. And I guess there's some bad quality backups somewhere. But those copyright strikes might be due to, or are due to the deaf crocodile release that's coming next month on their website. And according to the Instagram page, it's still scheduled for December 2024, though Amazon shows February 11th, 2025, which might be due to their subscription service sending it out first, and then you can probably buy it afterwards on the open market. But that movie completely flew under my radar. Josh, you suggested it. Others were familiar with the movie already. And with that, I want to, first of all, welcome all of you and say thank you for joining me today. Brand, Steve, James, and Josh. I know you all have many thoughts about this movie, but let's start. Credit where credit is due. Josh, how did you come up with the idea of suggesting this?
So I draw all the time and I go down random rabbit holes, especially on YouTube, because it's what you do on YouTube. And I think I can't remember if it was like Brandon's Cults classics, or if it was like a random, hey, here are the top 10 best adult animated films. I stumbled upon it, and it was one of these things I watched years ago. And this is always a film I've enjoyed, but the problem was I've had no one to talk about this movie, because I'm like, has anyone seen Felidae? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, this movie? They're like, I have not seen this Disney movie. Can you tell me more about this Disney movie? It's like, no. So this was one I knew where I'm like, I felt like this is the perfect one for movie club, because one, Torsten's never seen it. He's German, so that was just a nice little brag on my behalf. It is. But it also, I feel like it's a film, if you look at it, it's easy to guess what it's going to be about, where it's the complete opposite. Now, I'm going to make a little bit of predictions. James hated it. Rand hated it.
I didn't like it that much, but yeah.
Torsten's a little bit indifferent. Steven has emotional nostalgia to it.
I'll let my thoughts speak for itself, and I'm sure you'll read into them however you want to, Josh.
I almost know James to this point where I'm like, I don't know if he would like this one.
The plot moved too fast.
I mean, it's an hour and some change long, so it's not going to exactly move it slow, hopefully.
I think 1 hour, 17 minutes, though 4 minutes of those are credits. So yeah, 113, 114, somewhere in between there, I think. Steve, you mentioned you watched that in your childhood.
Yeah, so
it's an R-rated movie, first of all.
No, it's not.
I didn't realize it was an R-rated movie at the time. I was too young to discern at 10 years old that because it was an animated film, it could be an adult film. So I guess you could classify this as my true first R-rated film. My grandmother grew up in Germany, and she would show me German films.
I wish it popular is it a cat.
So I saw this in 1996 in its native language, around the same time I first saw Watership Down, The Secret of Nim, and that same year I also saw Das Boot for the first time in its native language. I'd seen that in English in 94 in English. And I'd watched this again in 2010 in its English language. I do prefer the German language version. It's less stilted and awkward. This was the third time I've watched it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they end up showcasing on that 4K. If it'll just be the native language, if they'll have a new dub, if it'll be the original dub just for the sake of horrible nostalgia purposes. But overall, this is a fun film to reflect on for me because, again, I didn't realize it was an adult film when I saw it.
According to dubbing.com, there are rights issues with the English dub, which would indicate that the Deaf Crocodile release will not have the English dub and only the subtitled version with German original. And if you saw, since you saw the movie for the first time in its original form, so the German release is FSK 12, which means recommended for 12-year-olds and older, which is kind of an equivalent to a PG in the US. And also not strictly enforceable. So it's the FSK 12. You don't have to be 12. It's kind of up to the parents, but obviously different than an R-rated movie. I have no idea how they got that label back then. Someone might have just glanced at the trailer and said, oh yeah, 12-year-olds is fine.
Well, let me interject here for a minute, because it used to be movies were like all ages. Then they decided to come up with the rating, and the idea was PG was parental guidance. That was like Jaws is PG. It was the kind of thing. It's like, this might not be okay for kids. Maybe take a second. Like, parents have to come. The other thing you gotta keep in mind, especially like, I'm assuming in Germany. Like, okay, my dad grew up on a ranch, so it's like he had to shoot his own horse when he was 8. So it's kind of like some of the imagery in this movie was his life. So it's the kind of thing, to him, it's not as big of a deal as to someone like nowadays. It would be like a huge deal.
Well, you also have to think, like, most of the time whenever censorship towards like animation or live action, most of the time it's about violence or nudity. And this one had no nudity in it, but a lot of violence, and they tend to be more lenient on the violence than anything else. So they probably just saw like animated cat movie. Well, they're not actually live cats, so this is probably okay. PG.
I'm trying to find what year they introduced the German FSK rating. It's not really that obvious at first glance. I'll keep digging, but might have been different back in the 90s.
Because I don't know the years, but I know with America it was PG, then it was PG and R, like in NC-17. Then the last one to be made was PG-13, because it was that sweet spot where they're like, okay, it's not quite kids movie, but it's not R.
Yeah.
Germany and it's evolved over the years too, because the MPAA created PG in 1972, I believe, and up until the mid 90s, you could still get away with dropping the F-bomb in a PG movie. It wasn't until later on you would receive one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie.
And I believe after it's already rated, you can't go back and change the rating on an old movie. At least in Germany, you can't. So since it's 12 years old, it will forever be 12 years old. They can't go back and change it afterwards.
That's probably the same thing as Jaws is PG.
The thing with this movie is that it was actually never released in the US. So the rating, I believe, comes from its Australian release. And this will be the first ever US American release, which might get a new rating. Maybe it's not R-rated anymore, or like maybe it never has been R-rated since it technically didn't have a release. It's just an Australian recommendation. I'm not sure. But generally, James, before we move on to content, this is the first time you've seen it, right?
Yes.
Okay. First time I seen it too, and literally yesterday was the first time I seen it.
You got lucky you didn't wait until today, because it's gone.
Oh yeah, I decided to do the English dub because like no way I wanted to read subtitles during this.
I guess it's a good thing I whipped it to the computer before I watched it.
I didn't even have subtitles when I watched it at 10. I just had my grandmother translating to the best of her ability.
Oh, maybe that helped because some of that language and that dialogue in there, if she translated it without all of the curse words and some of that homophobic content, you might have gotten a censored version. Obviously, graphically, still not for children, but at least the language might have been watered down. Though I don't know your grandma, so
Honestly, though, I was more affected by the depictions of subtle violence and outright violence in Watership Down than I was this film.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this movie was subtle because no, it's not.
No, this movie is not subtle.
I will say though, most of the deaths in this movie, you see the aftermath. Like there's only one time you see the actual act of it, which is still gruesome, but usually you see the aftermath. Like
Trying to explain this movie to people who have not seen it was an interesting feat, by the way, because I was like, okay, try and like summarize my like what the plot of this movie is. And the best I could come up with, best I could come up with is a horror detective movie, but with cats. That's about as good as I can get. And people describing it to, I was describing it to like, well, that sounds interesting. Like, yeah, but it's animated and like it's like actual cats, and there's a whole bunch of genetic experience going on. And they're like, oh, slow down, what? And I'm like, okay, I can't do this in a single sentence, I think, actually.
And it's all covered in a little bit over an hour.
It's basically an Ed Brubaker comic, but with cats.
Moves like that.
Shut up, James.
Well, to be fair, this was only produced, if I can remember correctly, this was produced for less than $5 million.
At the time, though, it was the highest German animated film.
I was about to say like 17 million Deutsche Mark, which, if you convert it into euro and then from euro to US dollar, you might end up with 5 million back in the day. But I guess, for its time, 17 million sounds a lot in like local currency.
And if you notice that there's different quality from frame to frame, it's because they had close to a dozen different animation studios working on this to ensure that it would have a timely release. They animated it in Dublin and Canada and Seoul, all over the place, just to make sure it would get released.
That one nightmare
Credit
scene.
to this movie. It's actually impressive how good this movie is, despite all those different production companies working this at the same time, and each have their own piece of the pie they work on. It's actually kind of impressive how good this looks still.
Especially like, man, that nightmare scene is still some of the best ones.
Yeah, when you just mentioned it, my thought immediately went to great that there were different companies because the style varies based on what nightmare Francis has. Because I don't know what scenes are obviously animated by different studios. I don't know if like a consecutive like scene was animated or if like one nightmare was animated there, the other nightmare was animated there, and the main plot was all in another place. I don't know.
I will say that's not an unusual practice, especially like in Japan. You'll have like one studio that boards and directs everything, but then they will hire out to different studios, especially for cost savings. Like, because that's one reason why like Ghibli and some of these studios are really renowned because they do everything in house. But a lot of them go like, especially it's like, man, we have this kind of scene. Oh, blah 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 is really good at this kind of scenes. Let's hire blah 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 to do this. Like that's the other thing that you get known in, especially in animation. It's like, oh man, we have a giant robot fight. This dude's great at drawing giant robot fights.
See, here's my thing about this. As well as animated as nightmare scenes are, and this is where I kind of have to nitpick a bit. They kind of do feel a bit like padding, and like they feel like they come a bit out of nowhere because they don't explain like why he's having these. Like they kind of imply like it's from like a psychic link or some type of thing like that, or is like something he like thinking about to like get further into the case that Francis is having. But it's like a lot of this information is like, okay, how are you coming up with like conclusions you're making to get this? The fact you're actively trying to go to sleep and get these like nightmares and dreams in order to like figure out like what steps to take next. Because a lot of this seems like it's just like I said, it kind of feels like padding because it just interrupts the flow of what the story is to just move on to some nightmarish crap going on through it.
So if we want to delve into the actual plot, I can kind of elaborate on why that is and why it seems odd compared to the German version, but we'll get to that point when we delve into it.
Before we jump into the plot, I just wanted to mention that, yes, this movie is graphic, but apparently, and I haven't read the novel, but this is based on a novel from 1989. Apparently, the novel is way worse, way worse. And then was adapted by, I don't know how to pronounce him, even though he has basically animated every single German animated movie in the 90s.
There's only one guy over there.
Michael Schaack, I would assume, who has animated Werner Beinhardt and its 3 sequels, Der kleine Punker, Ottis Ottifanten, Das kleine Arschloch, or Der kleines Arschloch, which are all cult movies, cult classics in Germany. Like those are, every child of the 90s has watched all of them at least 5 times and is kind of the gold standard for German animation.
He's basically the German Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Or I was going to say, because he sounds like Ralph Bakshi.
And it's interesting that, and after watching the movie, became clear that this is probably the only movie by him I had not seen until last week. But it becomes clear after watching it why that would be. So it would have been 11 when this came out. I wasn't 12 yet, so I guess my parents would have shown it to me if I was 12 and made the age rating. But no, all of those other movies are just called classics, phenomenal, outstanding movies that probably don't have an English dub or subtitles. So I don't know actually where to watch those. I watched Felidae in its German original. If you switch your VPN to Germany and have Amazon Prime, you're able to watch it in German. There are no English subtitles, only German subtitles, and just a German original version. So if you speak German, you can watch it, or if you just want to see the graphics. Because I don't know where the English dub will disappear to.
So let's start this out. What's the German names?
The German names, they're actually similar. So Francis is Francis. Bluebeard is Blaubart, which is just the direct translation, blue, and beard is Blaubart, which, by the way, is like a famous, I guess every culture has a blue beard somewhere. There's Barba Azul in Latin America or Spanish-speaking countries, which is like a legend there. Blaubart, Cap Blaubart, Bluebeard is like just a common, I guess, pirate myth. Everyone else it's the Clowndandes cult. It's Father Joker. Also in German, it's called Joker. There's no translation to it. Kong, Hermann and Hermann. Well, Hermann, you don't. you have those names. They're not translated. Felicitas is Felicitas. Pascal is Pascal. So they're the original, like they're the names. Even though the English dub translates the dialogue completely different. If you watched, there was actually something that I was working on yesterday when it disappeared. If you watched the English dubbed and had the English subtitles enabled, you could tell the difference, because the English subtitles are very like 99% close, true to the original German dialogue or language, narration and all. And just the dub was twisted and adjusted. I have some examples, but like overall, it just didn't match much. Some jokes came off wrong. And Steve, you have some additional comments there, I believe, with regards to how some translations didn't match the voice of Bluebeard completely does not. That's the other thing. The cast of the German, like this, it's like a who's who. Those are like the Hall of Fame in acting. Like you have Mario Adorf, Helge Schneider, Uwe Ochsenknecht, Ulrich Tukur. Those are household names with 100, 200, 300 movies throughout their career. And to my surprise, I have, because I am not following their career into their retirement, but none of them, all of them are still alive, which surprises me, because they were old already when I was a kid. Anyways, but yeah, the translation into English was a little bit off sometimes.
And the English dub, I think all of us tried in their own independent ways of trying to figure out who these people were. There is so many different sources online, from IMDb to behind the voice actors to even wiki pages about like who the voice actors are for the English dub, and none of them seem to be consistent. Like I seen Christopher Lloyd credited on this. I'm like, that doesn't seem right at all, because he has a very distinctive voice, especially with animation. And they credited John Hurt as like one of the actors too. I'm like, I think they're getting this confused with Watership Down, because he was in that. So I'm thinking, like, who is getting the information here of like who voiced who and from what? Because there doesn't seem to be much consistency with that.
I feel like if this was an Australian, not an American, I thought this was like, I always assume if it's English, it's American. But if this was Australian made, then it might not be like union based like it is in the West. So it's like we might not have that information.
It's just crazy. Like 30 years later, we still don't know much information about the English dub. Granted, it is a more obscure movie, but it is history and information that like we don't have much of a way to go on about that. We just have to pretty much just like guess and like compare. Like, did we like the German dub better or the English dub better? Because I only watched the English dub, and oh boy, was that rough with certain actors in some scenes.
Mm-hmm. It's like going through the Bible Black English dub.
Oh, for the love of!
I've been waiting for that review.
No, man, you guys are one. I will die on this hill. The acting in this movie was way better than Small Soldiers.
You are high, because I don't know who they got to play Joker's granddaughter, but that was like, yeah, can we have you like come in for like a scene and then leave, please? You can have your internship money out the door as you leave, please. Like that is like amateur hour acting there. No offense to whoever that is, I don't know, but it's like some actors feel like they just got paid by the word.
Yeah, for the longest time, it was rumored that Carrie Elways was pursued to play a role in this movie, but that's just Hollywood fan fiction at this point. There's no proof that actually happened.
You know what? I'm gonna go out. I don't care, honestly, and I'm kind of tired with animated films where it's like, especially it's like, okay, you get like known actors like Chris Pratt. It's like, well, yeah, I know it's Chris Pratt because he doesn't do anything. It's like I'd rather have like when I watch a movie, it's like, yeah, that's Francis, that's Joker, like that's Kong.
Oh, I think it's also like less to that and more. We just want to know who actually acted in this and give some credit. Not, well, the voice of Francis sounded off, because I want to have to keep saying the voice of this character sounded off, or you know, especially because I'm only talking about a dub that is not exactly like you can just go out and watch it, because it literally got nuked off of YouTube within like 4 hours of watching it because of the whole copyright strikes.
Yeah,
you can't literally watch it right now.
I also just posted in the Discord where you can watch it right now online.
Okay, but not everybody has access to that information.
I got it from Google.
Well,
I literally Googled
archive.org. There you go. You'll find it.
That's the thing. That's an archive site specifically for lost media. Mm-hmm. It's not like an official source. And that could also get taken down too.
It could.
Leave it alone, Deaf Crocodile. You want my money, you leave that shit alone.
I will say this, because the other thing is like, because I enjoy this film and I would like to join. I would enjoy owning this, but like we said, there's not been an official release. Also, I don't know. It's like, how many people are watching Felidae in a year? Like less. I almost can guarantee it's less than 50 people.
We can't see the numbers anymore, and I didn't look how many have watched the
Sure.
YouTube version that was up, and I don't know how long it was up for. I think I saw the multiple years it was up for, but I don't know how many people have watched it.
I'll say this, that happens quite a bit because like the version I first watched it was a lot better. There's like one up right now that has like it split into parts. It will be back like.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind if they did a redub. I know there are no indication. I thought I heard, but I think it was off by, it gets a new audio, like a commentary track on the release of the 4K, and new sound effects, whatever those sound effects are that they're adding. That seems weird, but okay. But yeah, again, the dub version, the few scenes I rewatched yesterday, and then literally had two screens up, or like one on my phone and the other screen because I had to switch it to VPN for the German version and then on my phone for the other. They translated stuff incorrectly without any reason. It wasn't to make it easier. There's one scene where Francis and Bluebeard are walking over across the wall and run into Hermann and Hermann. And they come towards them and they say Sackgasse, which is dead end. I think they say it twice. They say like dead end, first confrontation there. In the English dub, they say hi pussycat. It's like, it doesn't even make sense to just say hello
So
when they're literally aggressively blocking their way and say dead end.
Back then, it was more important to match the lips than to match the script.
No, Sackgasse and hi pussycat don't really, I don't know. I'm not an expert in dubbing.
No, but I'm saying that's why, because it's like, especially like, so it used to be, let's go down this little rabbit hole. People figured out it was a lot cheaper to get stuff from abroad and repackage it over here than try to make it. And oftentimes they would re-edit, especially because they'd be like, oh, this would be perfect for kids. Oh, this would not be perfect for kids. So let's cut, re-edit, let's change it, which was a common practice until Miyazaki came around, because he had enough weight to say, hey, don't do this. Because especially like, man, in the 90s, we were just getting manga, but it's like they were all flipped. They were all mirrored images. So it's the kind of thing, it's like, it's kind of weird. We still have this a little bit in America, but I remember really in the 90s, it was this weird where it's like, well, this is foreign, but we don't want to admit it's foreign, so we'll just pretend it's like a cheap American knockoff.
Yeah, no, I get your point. Though I have one other example, and like in both examples, I don't think the lip movement matches more. Like the original, the just direct translation would have matched way better. Like the other scene is like 40 seconds later when they're talking, and Francis, Kong, I think, tells Bluebeard. So German version, zeigt dir, wie sie es tun. English subtitle is he teaching you how they do it? And then the actual dub is, are you going to show us some of the tricks he taught you? Like, it's literally twice as long, and the lip movement does not match. So it's just weird, the decisions they made in the dub version. But I guess it might have to be cheap and quick.
I actually have more issues with like the narration that was going on throughout this, because yeah, it's a smart idea to have most of what Francis says be like thoughts he has that aren't spoken aloud, because then you don't have to match lip flaps. It's just a shame that most of what he says through his thoughts are some of the most contradictory statements I think some narration can have, and most of it is like the ending narration, which we'll get to later. But that one was like, okay. That made me have to roll my eyes a little bit with how they decided to try and wrap that up with a bow.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning, plot-wise. I think it does a great job establishing the genre mystery right from the get-go, with all those contradictions. When Francis is first coming on scene and enters the new house, saying it smells. But then his can opener, Gustav, says he loves it there, and it's the most amazing place.
What were they? What was the nickname for them in German? Was it still a can
Dosenöffner.
opener?
Yeah, Dosenöffner. Yeah.
I feel
Which
like
is sometimes very cringy because he would use Dosen. No one, like, either it's an actual can opener, the device, but if you refer to Dosenöffner as a human, it could be like someone like screwing a lot of women, like in an like older, like, I don't know.
I think it was legit.
It's not
just
commonly
opening
used,
up
but like
cans.
that's the only. Oh yeah, no, they were opening the cans for them, but like that was like constantly through the movie when they used the can opener. It's like, because there is a reference or like a this, like the slur in German when to open the can. I don't know, in English that might not work as well, but like it's more common in German to use it nowadays. Maybe not, but like to me the association was just like it's weird. Why would they choose that word? But
I think it's wait a minute. I think it's a couple things. One, like, especially, I mean, it's made by a bunch of adults, so it's like at some point someone it probably was like more of an inside joke where it's like, okay, we can call them can openers because they're opening cans, but it's also this like slur, so it's like kids won't get it, but adults will get it.
Plus, it also kind of fits into this whole like buddy cop that the Bluebeard and Francis have, where Bluebeard's just kind of like aged, like I've been on the force for too long kind of thing. Because like I said, this is basically like a hard-boiled detective story, whereas Bluebeard playing the aged cat on the streets, while Francis is the new rookie cop coming in that's like the upstart who's a smartass about everything. So it's like, to me, that just feels like, oh, I'm just watching like Harvey Bullock as a cat, really, just talk colorfully.
Also, it's a little thing, but I enjoy when you have like, so this is a made up world because we have like this whole cat society, and it's like, yeah, the fact that they would have like a demeaning term for humans actually makes sense, especially if you have wild cats versus like neutered cats. So it's like, yeah, it's a nice little touch where, and I feel like a lot of, not to go down this rabbit hole, but I feel like the problem with a lot more modern movies is the writing, where it's like you don't get clever like little lines like that or little bits that are like, oh, that's an interesting touch.
No,
I don't agree with
humor, Lolly and I were like, oh shit, it's Josh in cat form.
Bluebeard?
Yeah. He's my favorite character throughout this entire film because he's just so straightforward.
Like I say, it's Harvey Bullock in cat form, so it's like, okay, at least I know what kind of character I'm getting with this.
I'm also like, they didn't say it. I'm really convinced that Kong took his eye.
I mean, they don't really give an indication one way or another, like confirmation about it, but I think you could probably read into it that way.
Well, especially the German voice actor. So if you compare that to an American equivalent, would be the German Marlon Brando, and that kind of fits that character pretty well as well. But yeah, since the mystery element has been established right from the beginning, you get suspicious of everyone. When Bluebeard came first on scene, it's like, oh, that might be the murderer. And what was proven not to be true, but there are multiple characters where I got suspicious, like, oh, that could be it, that could be them. And like, I liked how it set up certain things and that misled you in a way that kept it interesting throughout the movie, because with every new character that was introduced, those could have been the murderer. And you constantly kept guessing where it's going to take you and where the twists are, because there were many twists, but never the one you expected.
I'm not sure about that one, because I think at a certain point I'm like, well, I wonder who it could be, because when they cut to like the video diary footage of it, and well, let's just kind of head a bit, but then they cut to like the diary footage of like the genetic experiments they're doing with cats, and it shows like literally the face of the cat in the cage. I'm like, well, that looks like it could be a named character who may have already appeared in the movie.
But it wasn't until later, no?
Yeah, no.
That was like at least halfway through.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, and don't do any harm to that.
No cats are harmed in the making of this movie club.
Yeah, they're
Throw the
dramatic.
cat on the ground.
Who here also thought Felicitas might have been the murderer?
No.
No.
She was the one optimistic
No?
character in this movie.
She was
Like,
weirdly. She was
that's-
like.
No, here's what I actually have a bit of a problem with is like the one optimistic character, the one who's also disabled and blind, has less screen time than the cat that is later very promiscuous and the one that can't stop screwing Francis. And that one gets to live.
The only thing that got me,
One-
Felice,
The one optimistic character in this movie.
I always forget this because I remember like, oh yeah, Felicia dies, but I always think it's later. Like I always feel like, oh, there's a good like 10, 15 minutes, not just next scene. It's like, oh, well, and that was the first clue. He was a murderer because it's like he was, which is kind of weird that he was typing. Like that was another big clue. It's like him typing on a computer, but he was like, oh, there's been another murder. But it's like, how would you know outside of if you unless
It was
you
a
did it?
throwaway. It was a throwaway line that, like, oh, another stray who you don't see in the movie told me that she died, and I'm like, okay, we don't even see who that cat is, and
That's
I
yeah.
didn't even catch the name until later. So I'm like, okay, so that instantly clicked in my head, like, okay, I'm gonna have Pascal in the suspects list. Spoilers, by the way.
Also, Thorsten, you're going to get a lot of these questions tonight. Was that an actual German computer or was that just a weird looking computer?
That was just a weird looking computer. There weren't
I
any
was
specific.
so hoping you'd be
German.
like, that's the Svingen model that came out in 80.
1994 German computers.
We're at the same kind of computers.
Also, I will throw this out here. If there's not a dub version of this chat in German by Torsten, he has failed you all.
I was.
You
I
can use
expect-
AI.
I expect perfect lip matching with this moment in German.
I wanted to be German and English subtitles, and I want us to be dubbed by Germans too.
Just trying to think how to pull this off later. but-
Because then
But,
we get
to me, it felt like very maniac, very subtle, disturbed character. Like she was too friendly, and the blind, like this kind of manic, like, oh yeah, no, everything is good, but like,
I
know
didn't see that at
something.
all. I just sorry to step over that. Like, I just thought, like, yeah, she's blind, but she's like trying to make the best of her disability and not be like, all humans are bad. Like, because she does mention, like, well, who else would take me in but like a human being? And keep in mind, the only human beings we see in this movie are Gus, who Francis seems to just call mentally deficient, his first sentence in the movie, and the mad scientist doing genetic experiments on cats. So the human representation of this movie is kind of bare minimum at best.
we also see the genetic guy.
That's what I mean. Like, we have like two examples of humans as
No, the other genetic guy, the priest.
yeah, the Mendel, but that's what I'm talking about. But like, you get like two examples. You get Gus, who just gets called mentally deficient by his cat, which rude. And B, you get the genetic experimental doctors and genetics experts who's like, okay, one's a nightmare vision, and the other one is an alcoholic who thinks he can fight a cat fist to fist. I don't know what representation of humans we're supposed to have here with this movie, because the ending narration of this makes you think like, well, if only humans and animals could work side by side together peacefully. You already do. The genetic experiments were exception, not the rule.
Guys, I'm starting to think Brand enjoys MCU movies more than this one.
I think that has nothing to do with this. That's irrelevant to your whole point. Anyways.
I've just never seen you this salty towards a movie.
Well, I have been salty towards the movie, but the thing is, like, most movies up till now that I've been on this movie club on, I have mostly like positive things to say. This one I had to think about for like an entire day. Like, did I actually like this movie, or am I more thinking about it? Do I just kind of see it as like cliches I've seen before? And for the most part, like twists I kind of see coming. And the whole resolution is kind of not really wrapped up all that well that I was expecting it to be. And this kind of like just fell flat for me.
Well, they don't even adapt the epilogue the book has for this one. The book ends up with Francis taking the time to clear Joker's name and Joshua realizing that there's more to life and finding an owner who I think runs a restaurant or a bar. It's been 14 years since I read the book, which is
and that's no, that's from the movie. The best I could tell from the movie is just like it ends with like Francis and whatever that cat was, the designer one, just going off into the corner and probably going to have sex again. While Francis winks at the camera and says, like, if only humans and animals could work better together peacefully together. Like, what the heck kind of resolution is that to the past hour of the movie?
Okay,
yeah, he does end up with the femme fatale, unfortunately.
Also, waiting to
femme
go back.
Femme fatale is like, man, that's an insult to the term femme fatale. It's like, I see noir movies like all they do is just screw for like awkwardly for 3 minutes, and it's like, okay, they even call it a diversion. Like that could have just not been in the movie, and nothing would have changed.
It's in the book, though. It's
not
graphically described in the book.
It's in the book, but the thing is, like, not everything that's in the book is in the movie. So some things that are in the book don't translate well to the movie. Is what I'm saying.
No, and it's not like there wasn't time for them to do it, because the book, if I remember, it's less than 300 pages, and this film equates to about a 1 hour and 17 minutes.
But it's,
if you include the
but
credit.
The problem, okay, well, a couple points. One, to go way back to the Felicia, I feel like this could be a difference between the German and the English version, because that's going to be the tone of this whole conversation. Whereas maybe in the German version, she came off a little evil or something like underhanded, where in the English version, Felicia's more, I hate to say it, like pathetic in a lot of ways, because she's almost like, it's almost like a clear, like, yeah, she's going to be dead. Like, there's no way you're living till the end of this movie.
But that's the thing. Most of the women characters in this movie are just either a victim, somebody who is obviously promiscuous, or Joker's granddaughter who's in the scene for like a sentence and then is just gone. So it's like any female representation in this movie is kind of non-existent. It's just really Francis and Bluebeard and Pascal have any sort of intelligence in this movie.
I was going to say,
everybody else is just a victim or just not important.
Well, look at the male characters. They're either like homicidal maniacs, tripping off of electricity.
But only if humans and animals could work together, as if, cats aren't trying to be in suicide cults or killing 400 cats just to have genetic purity or some crap. This is cats we're talking about here. And I'm talking about this like it actually is a detective hard-boiled movie from the 1940s. What the heck am I talking about?
So Brand hated this movie.
Fable.
To be fair, even though there is no commentary from the author in this book, the author went down a pretty weird rabbit hole in their real life, which is why the book has become more controversial than this film. O'Keefe is a right-wing extremist and a bit psychotic. So we're fortunate that we got the final product we did without any statements about the Holocaust or Islam included.
Yeah, and that subtext is kind of hard not to like look more into when you look at the real world like stuff the author's done. And
yeah, this is definitely one of those separate the art from the artist kind of properties. But I get what you're saying, Brand, completely, and I understand. Going into this, it was a lot of nostalgia that had me looking forward to revisiting this. But even though the execution isn't perfect, especially when you're watching the English dub. When you're watching it in its native language, it works a little bit better.
Yeah, I have not read the book, but if at all, it feels like the movie would have then worked against that sublime, that you're saying there was way more, the book was way more cherishing those like genetic, when they call it backbreeding. Obviously, it's a reference to like the Nazis trying to get things into like an Aryan race and
super
like
race is what the
super race.
geneticist calls it.
And through breeding and through basically selection.
I think one of the biggest flaws this movie has is the fact that there were elements that could have been more finely tuned and better developed. I think if they had more of a budget to properly develop this, then maybe it would have been more financially successful, and we might have seen even the second book receive an adaptation, because there's a completely separate story that led to a second book, and I don't know that that was ever published in English, honestly.
I feel, but if the movie wasn't really like putting that in a positive light, do you say like the book was going more into that direction and kind of putting that into a ideal case, or kind of a case for in favor of those breeding experiments?
That's where the disconnect between the author's very public political statements and what he seems to be trying to discuss in the book that was adapted into this film. That's where it comes in, because it seems like with Francis having come out victorious and being able to bring people together, the author is making the statement that all of this experimentation, trying to create this super race of cats, which ironically, the ideal cat, the Felidae, was basically an Aryan cat, a blonde, blue-eyed cat.
Okay,
it doesn't really connect.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, I think there are times, especially with art, I think we're getting into some weird weeds, because the ideal cat was Egyptian.
I mean, they do have Egyptian mythology like peppered throughout this.
Yeah,
movie.
but I'm saying like
I will
that
give this
ideal
movie that like they did go back at least that far as like that. But it is kind of weird that like, okay, this German anime movie about cats, there's a big subplot about like genetic engineering and like,
But okay, wait a minute.
trying to make
Also,
a super race of cats.
Okay, since we're going down the concentration camp, since we're going down this way, these are two different things, because like Nazis' experiments were vast and they were terrible, because like one of the ones that were common were taking twins and doing like torture on one twin to see if the other twin would react to it, like if there was some kind of this happened like this. They did a lot of weird experiments that had nothing to do with anything. So I think, yeah, it's easy to look at like it's easy to look at anything German and go like, oh, go down to the past. But it's like, I always read this not as part of the whole Nazi. It's just like animal testing was a lot more popular back then, where it's like, we didn't think about what we were doing to the animals. Cause like Rats of Nim is all about that too, but you wouldn't equate Rats of Nim with the Holocaust.
Well, here's the thing too, is like, it is like, how do I put it? The subtext for this is kind of very blatant. Like I said, this movie is exactly subtle. Like it's in the allegories, because you do have like many cats throughout the movies, like say like, oh, where'd you come from? Oh, I got experimented on, like Felicity. Like it's implied that she wasn't born blind. She was blind because of the experiments she went through. She just doesn't remember it. You also have like some other cats, like Pascal was also like experimented on. And I was gonna say Bluebeard. Bluebeard, I think, also was
Bluebeard
quite bad.
was. He just didn't remember
Yeah.
it, just like Felicity.
And heck, Bluebeard and Kong were also in on like watching in on like the suicide cult business too. So it's like there's a lot of like, I hate to say indoctrination because that doesn't sound right, but there's a lot of like subtext of like, especially when they're all like referring to each other like, hey, you see what happened to like our brothers in here when referring to other cats.
Okay, but I'm saying like I think in some way it's you're making connections that aren't there because technically it's going like I don't look at like what has Ed Gein done equated to the Holocaust, even though I forget her name, one of the women's running the camps did a lot of the same tortures that Ed Gein tried to do when he like I'm just saying I think this is because this is German, we're taking this all the way back to World War II.
No,
Where
but
I
you
don't
have
think
to-
it is.
so I gotta step in here
But-
because being German, this is 100% a reference to the Nazis and
Yeah.
the Nazi experiment. There's no way anyone can misunderstand that in Germany, like especially in the 90s, even nowadays. This is a German movie about genetic breeding. Doesn't matter if it's an Egyptian cat. Like this is a parable, a fable that is meant to be associated with the Nazis and with Hitler trying to breed the Übermensch and to have the Aryan race succeed, perfect body or perfect mind and perfect body, like all the testing, all the genetics going into that direction. And there is no other interpretation, I think, in Germany for this than it absolutely meaning the Nazis and this being a reference to the Nazis. I see your point, Josh, but like if this was a US movie, sure, any other country, but in Germany, you can't say certain words without like, oh, this is a term that Nazis used. Like they're like, I haven't done the deep dive on Mendel. Like I'm not as familiar with his work as I probably should be.
Mendel was more, I will say this, I do know this for a fact. Mendel was more about the death side. He wasn't about the like genetic creating a superhero like Hitler was. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying in the camps, because which is terrible, they did not view them as human. No, shut up, Alexa. That was a weird moment. Sorry. In the camps, they didn't view them as humans, so they weren't trying to do like experiment. Like, I get where. God, now I feel like I'm not trying to be sympathetic to Nazis or say anything. I'm just saying, from my point of view, one there's a big history between then and then, and I can honestly see where yes, some of the imagery, especially like him putting acid in straight to the brain, that seems like something Mendel would do, where it's like this is supposed to heal, where it's like this isn't going to heal anything.
Well, like I said, like the English dub, and forgive me if I'm wrong with this, if it's not in the German dub, but like Preterius, then clicked in my head. He literally talks to like the cat in the cage and says, "Gonna make like a super race of cats." Like that is like a legit line that's in the English dub. If that's not in the German dub, fine. But I have only seen the English dub, and I'm going by what I see in there. And like, if it's plainly that obvious, then I'm going to take it as that blatantly obvious. As far as like what they're going for as far as allegory. So it's hard not to see it if you see it.
Well, I'll say let me go with this route. I've always viewed it more like the cult side because like evangelicals nowadays are trying to kickstart Armageddon. So
that's the thing too. Is yeah, you have Joker doing like the cult, but it's also kind of weird in the next scene where Bluebeard just kind of hand waves off to like, oh, they're harmless. I'm like, harmless? Did you not see how many cats walk into electric current? As it is nothing?
Because like, this is how I always kind of viewed it. You had the evil scientist doing these batshit experiments who clearly like was drunk, had no, you kind of are immediately there to question like his scientific take. Then you had the cult spring up, and yeah, it might have been like this wasn't me connecting the two dots because like I said, I've seen this in English. Yeah, and probably, and it's one of those things as culturally, I will never understand the scars of Nazism as growing up Germany, because I'm assuming, Torsten, you've talked about it's like those still are around, like those, there's still remnants of those scars.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you can't like put the German flag up in your house or outside or anywhere other than during a World Cup, a soccer World Cup. But you're being called a Nazi if you wave the German flag. Same as if you say anything against Jews in general or Israel. Right now, with everything that's going on, one negative thing about Israel, you're being called a Nazi. I just did quick research on Mendel. I always see this, I just Google, but like I found on Cambridge studies that claim that social Mendelism gained its most explicit manifestation in Germany under the Nazi rule. So the Nazis used Mendel 100% for their theories and for their ideology.
I guess, and this is where maybe and I'll admit I'm probably 1,000% wrong. I guess what I'm balking at, because I always viewed, I forget his name, the doctor and Claudius as two separate ideals. Because
right, but I think
you mean Praetorius,
I think
the main scientist, Josh?
Yes, yeah, because Precarious, like he wasn't trying to develop like a super cat. He was trying to develop more mutants, aka to do his experiments. It was Claudius who was trying to do, but it was Claudius who was trying to get to the super race.
But that's the thing. Claudius was inspired by Praetorius trying to make a super race of cats. Because that was in the video diary where like right before it cuts out and like the video more just gets jarbled. Which kind of is weird how like that whole scene works. Because it's like it's a creepy scene because they don't shy away from any visuals on that.
No, and because it was Praetorius's assistant Zebold who wound up taking in Pascal / Claudius / Felidae, and they had been using a lot of Mendel's research and the laws of hereditary traits. He was able to see the central theme that Praetorius was trying to bring forth. Yes, he was involved in this research for physical health and healing related reasons. He just went about it through torture and horrific experiments, and that tainted whatever good had lived in Claudius at that point. So
which is another thing, because that ending, sorry, Josh, that is also another ending like, woe is me, kind of like when that character passes on. It is like, this isn't the Tears in the Rain speech that you think it is from Blade Runner.
So
I was good once, and like, yeah, you kind of dropped that ball when you decided to like murder 400 of your own species.
Also, I won't lie. The more I was arguing this, back in my mind, I'm like, no, there's some good points here, actually. Like, it's like, God damn it.
Where we talk.
Well, no, because it's one, I guess this is what I always enjoyed about this film. Like, I always enjoyed it was a hard knock film noir with cats that was set in the real world. Like, there's no fantastic, like, there's a little bit like the electricity part. I'll give it the fantastic element because I'm pretty sure that would fry a cat. But then it's also like, the cult. And like, for me, I guess growing up, it's like I'm more related to the cult side just between like upbringing, where I grew up than with the whole Nazi camp side. Like, so to me, it was more about like the cult side than the scientific experiments.
That's interesting.
Then, my friend, this was the right movie for you.
What do you all make of, I mean, Josh, you just mentioned it, but the cult. So, because looking back, the cult has actually no role to play. Like, it doesn't impact the plot.
They're red herring. Like, they're there just because, like, up until the very end, they're there to set up, like, oh, Joker's, like, the main suspect. It should be Joker because, like, he's the one who is, like, spouting all this doctrine about, like, well, if you can hear it when he's electrocuting cats, because I could barely hear it, and I was trying. but like he's the one who's like the face of this like sect. And like even Pascal's like trying to shift the blame onto Joker. Like, oh yeah, it was Joker. Joker was the one doing all this stuff to us.
I think
And Francis is kind of suspicious about that.
I
So
think
it's like the whole time I thought like this seems too obvious to be just like they're setting it up. They're front loading the cult business up too much up front for it to be the cult that's the main problem here. There has to be someone behind the scenes.
Plus, the
doing
most
this.
trustworthy character, Bluebeard, is vouching for them. So they were like, they're safe in the beginning. When he was like, no, Carl, they're just doing their thing. It's like, okay,
They're
no, I trust
harmless.
this
And I'm
guy.
like,
well, I think they are a red herring, but I think in the story wise, the idea of the cult was to try to find the right members to gain the perfect cat. And it was a way to hide the bodies. Because if it count like X amount of them died from electricity because they were suffering from Claudius. So all of a sudden, if another, because the big difference was cats disappeared all the time. No one questioned that. It's when he started leaving the bodies out. That's when people started questioning it.
well,
But,
that
wasn't
actually
it
just reminded me. I do have
Yes.
to question that. That still happened in Gus's house. So did Gus have to pick up those bodies later? Like, did they take care of those?
But they weren't all killed in the house, no?
I
They
mean, they kind of were, if they weren't like severely brain damaged, I imagine, from like electricity.
'Cause
I mean, shocked. 300
Well,
volts
also,
apparently.
Gus didn't own the house. He was renting that house. So it would probably fall on the landlord to take care of the kitty.
You guys are-
poodles.
Let's figure
You
out
guys
the
are
detail.
You're forgetting about the crypt keeper, the old cat. Because Claudius would
Yesaya.
drag bodies to, and he would make that temple.
Yeshua.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though. Is like character only shows up for like a scene after Solitaire. Another one that Solitaire, like another one who's not even a character. It's just another victim of the movie.
No, but
Which
he was
is
involved
another-
in this. Like he was getting rid of all the dead bodies. So he was in the know.
Because
And definitely I don't know where to put him, like an accomplice or
Complicit, maybe.
yeah.
well, I think it might be the whole cycle of abuse where it's like he was a victim, but then he's now become part of the problem. Because from my understanding, it sounded like it was cats that were thrown out during the experiment. Then he started making the shrine. Then he didn't realize that the experiment stopped and it was Claudius doing it. But to him, it was just he was continuing the work he originally did.
Yeah, because he kept referring to a prophet, and they don't exactly say who the prophet is. I think. See, that's the thing. Like that could be Claudius. It could be Joker. It could be somebody else who's just speaking from up on high. But they don't exactly say who the prophet is. It's just you're just kind of supposed to infer.
Wait, who is the priest then? Not the doctor. Who is the priest in the painting with the nightmare with the puppets?
Was that Mendel?
Yeah,
I think that's supposed to be
one of the
Mendel.
nightmares.
That was I guess I never associated. Wait a minute. So that was the German scientist Mendel from World War II.
Austrian.
Austrian.
All the bad
Austrian.
Austrian. Hitler was Austrian, Mendel was
Sorry,
Austrian.
Austrian.
Foreign distinction there.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a different
there's
country.
definitely-
Everyone keeps blaming us, wasn't us. This was the Austrians.
Okay, if you say so.
There's a birth certificate for Mendel. You can view it. He was Austrian.
But wait a minute. He was Catholic in the painting.
Yeah, Austria is Catholic, South Germany is Catholic,
But
Northern
part of
Germany
Nazi,
is Protestant.
but yeah, part of Nazism though was they got rid of all religion.
Yeah, but he was in the 1800s, so late 1800s. So it
Oh.
was just the Nazis they took Wagner too, Richard Wagner and Mendel, like others. They took people that had lived way before them,
Who
took
was it?
the ideologies and abused them, even though whether they were meant
Sure.
like that or not.
Who was in charge of all the experiments in the camps then?
Different office SS officers. I don't know. Different people. Goering.
Yeah, Mendel was dead long before even Hitler.
So
was,
I think we're
thing.
all enjoying the public school system at work here because all of a sudden it never dawned on me I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know who that guy was because I was just like, oh, it's some random.
I didn't know who it was
Catholics.
either. Like just especially the animation style doesn't really let you associate them with real life people, unless again you finish the movie, then you know. And it probably, I mean, Steve, you've watched it 3 times, so second time watching, you probably pick up more on this experiment parts because you know that's what's behind it, and you kind of disregard the cult a little bit more. But
Well, by that point, I had dug a little bit more into German history, so I had a more thorough understanding. And then it wasn't just watching the movie in English that helped a little bit. About a year later, I finally got to read the book, and that makes it pretty clear who is depicted in each of these nightmares.
Gotcha.
Apparently,
So
there's
yeah,
a
walk us
nightmare
through
scene
then.
for Deep Purple that wasn't in the movie either. That was in the book.
Walk us through who those are, and if you can remember. I know you mentioned it's been a while since, but the different nightmares. I mean, they're obviously the doctor is revealed in there with the faceless one. You see in a later version the face appearing. Whatever. There were more. There was one more nightmare. No, you had the Mandel puppet master
Yeah,
nightmare, and then you
it's
had
It was a dream because it was a Felidae saying, "Come with us to the light," showing all the cats turning into like
okay.
stars.
Yeah, and the reason
I don't think that's supposed
behind-
to be. I think that's supposed to be. I don't think that's supposed to be. I was gonna say the progenitor of cats. I bet
Well,
because in my head I was thinking like, okay, Egyptian god for cats, Egyptian god for cats, and I was like blinking in my head like what that was called. But I was
sure.
thinking
I'm just
like,
saying that was one of the dreams.
right,
well, the reasoning behind these
Huh.
dreams, and we couldn't touch upon it until we got to this point in the movie, is through the experimentation, and the English dub does not make this clear at all. The German dub implies it, and the book goes a little bit deeper. The Praetorius experiments on Claudianus created exactly what he was expecting. It created basically this super cat, and the consequence of the empowerment was eventually Claudianus developed this stomach cancer and started spearheading all of these murders as quickly as humanly possible because he knew he would eventually degenerate. He developed this psychic bond and was able to eventually overcome the person who committed all these atrocities on him, and was able to develop that power further and influence Francis to the best of his ability because he wanted Francis to eventually figure out what was going on through these nightmares. So he was directly influencing Francis in his dream states.
okay, the English dub does not make that clear at all
No.
because it just makes it seem
does
like
not.
Well,
it
I would
just
even
makes it seem like, oh, if Francis goes to sleep, he's planning on getting these nightmares and these dreams because he's trying to get himself into this lucid state of dreaming to further his clues and investigation. Like, okay, where to look to next, kind of a thing. Like,
I
but they
will
don't make
say
it any sort of clear as a psychic link between him and Claudius. It's
I
just
think they
it kind of
tried.
happens.
I think they tried to imply that that is what was going on when Francis is listening to the videotape, and you just hear those lines that Praetorius is uttering to Claudianus back when it's all fuzzy and there's nothing on the screen, but it doesn't really drive home that that sort of connection has been made between the two, and that all the experimentation would enhance what Claudianus could do and become more than just a straight cat.
because I don't
Yeah,
even know if
because
that's like a dub issue or if that's more like because like if you look at Akira the movie compared to Akira the book, because like in Japan it's common to be like, oh, everyone's read this story, so let's just show the cool let's show the highlights or the small part because everyone knows the story.
I mean, they
But yeah,
do
that's why, like,
explain it a little bit in the end towards it, but it's like brushed always just like, well, Claudianus became Pascal, and then he like had this, he used Joker to to commit those crimes. And then I think, again, I don't know in English how they pronounce it, Yesaha, the
Joshua.
Joshua. Okay. Voice actor, by the way, by Helge Schneider. It's like all time, like great comedian. Anyways, to do, but yeah, within a minute or so, like they just like wrap that up really fast and do those connections, like who Claudianus, in German is Claudandus.
Yes,
actually,
quite different.
And how he becomes Pascal, but it's like really.
It really did need maybe 15, 20 more minutes. It needed further development because it starts out, those first 2 acts, they're decent, but as you get into the 3rd act, you can tell that they really rush to that ending.
Yeah, because like I said, there's some contradictory stuff, especially with like the narration and how the characters are like talking to each other, trying to come up with conclusions. Where it's like, okay, they're starting to like put the pieces together, but then they have a whole other bit of information comes up that kind of contradicts the old information that came up beforehand. Because like I said, Joker's granddaughter comes up for like a scene, not brought up afterwards, because afterwards they just find out Joker's dead anyway. So it's like, what was the point of Joker's granddaughter even showing up in the begin with? If that was never going to be important.
He got the idea for Joker too.
She was just there to form that connection and legitimize Joker as the cult leader. She was that way of connecting Joker to the one who had led all these cats being able to live the lives, albeit flawed lives, that they were living.
See,
I will say, point to this movie. I will say a positive thing about this movie. I did enjoy that it was setting itself up as like a murder mystery, like let's solve this like local crime going on, and it kind of blew up to like a bigger conspiracy going on in the background, which I think a lot of good detective movies have that kind of sort of like bigger conspiracy going on in the background that you don't notice until you watch it the second time.
It's Chinatown.
So like watching this a second time, I imagine it'd probably be better because you know what's going, like, okay, here's like the real like thing going in the background. It's not as simple as it first appears to be. So I did appreciate that. There's just the more I think about it, with certain like elements that happened, there's a few things that kind of don't make any sense or just not really brought up again afterwards that kind of make it drop the ball for me a little bit.
One thing I'll say with the like extra 20 minutes, I wish they showed the designer cats beforehand, because they all of a sudden talking about them like taking over the neighborhood, and that like Felicia is one of the, because it's also, you get the idea, which that's just an interesting problem in its own, because like you have the whole designer dogs, like the ones that are really tiny, because it's like, how genetically altered are they? But yeah, it's like I wish they would have shown like that cat a little earlier, even if it was just like in the background, or like I don't need a full blown scene with her, but just now like all of a sudden she gets introduced like really randomly.
Sure, sexy.
That's the thing too, is like she shows up and is mysterious. Like she shows up and like, who are you? Like my name doesn't matter. All I am is something new, something old, and they have the piece together to like that, and then they have sex, and it's like,
no,
well, that was a diversion.
They have sex first, and then he's like, "Oh, who are you?"
Thanks, movie. I needed to know what 2 animated cats having sex looks like. Thanks.
Oh, it's all line.
It was pretty scientifically accurate, unfortunately.
Also, I can say owning a female cat who was in heat at one point, good God, all male cats will come out of they come out of the woodworks.
I guess it's a good thing that Claudianus decided to pick the one successor who was going around the neighborhood anyways to try and be successor.
That's why I had to kill them so many, because they were all after her. But yeah, introducing that in the beginning, but maybe that would have given it away too early, because it's like literally the first thing is like, what do they all have in common? Like,
you know what you could have done though?
Castrated.
I'm just saying, like, show her like in a windowsill, like just have like in the beginning, like if you rewatch, you go, oh, there she, like
on a pole.
Yes.
That's the thing too. This movie is about like, we're saying this like we're like humans talking to each other, These are all just cats just talking to each other like they're actual cats. Like they're animated like they're cats. They're like making vocalizations like they're cats. Like Bluebeard will literally like mark his territory on any building it comes across and goes,
I love
Bluebeard
that
was here.
part.
Francis was too sophisticated. He was too decent in that sense.
Also,
he was after any food that was available too.
Also,
is that fish liver or is that fresh liver?
Speaking of animation, I cannot believe how like I can't think of the right term, but like every one of the cat's designs, okay, like Francis, 3 of his legs had like the socks and then 1 didn't, which is like, that's not a big deal until you realize animating it, you had to keep track of that one that wasn't a sock.
Well, here's another thing about designer cats. I couldn't tell you any breed of cat in this movie because I couldn't tell you what Kong is supposed to be, what kind of breed of cat that is. I can't tell you who Bluebeard is supposed to be. And now that's me not being a cat expert.
Bluebeard was a Maine Coon, but the first time I watched this movie, because of his size and the way that his jowls are shaped, I thought Kong was a dog that just thought he was a cat.
I'm
like a cartoon dog you'd see in like a Tom and Jerry movie.
He reminded me a lot of Carface from All Dogs Go to Heaven the first time I saw this movie.
Man, Kong is half gorilla. You cannot like that is half silverback.
See, that's the thing is like you could tell me like, oh, designer cats, like they're new, some new and old. All these cats don't look much different to me. Like the Suicide Cult ones, they all look like the same cat.
Well, that was, I guarantee you, that was to save. That was a budgetary issue with those.
Oh, that was definitely an animation budget issue. But it's like, okay, so what makes Francis any different than all these other cats? And also, that's kind of the problem I have the whole Suicide Cult thing being like an obvious red herring. It's like, okay, so you want there to be a Suicide Cult where you purge any genetic impurities, but you also want to have a successor to take over your whole thing, but you're also encouraging these cats to also kill themselves. So how are you going to find a successor unless they're not that dumb enough to walk into that's your current for you?
Well, you see their breed.
You don't kill them
That's why
outright.
he has a database. That's why Pascal or Claudandos had a database to identify them and try to match them. But again, and I can't pronounce her name, something with and no the Egyptian. Wow.
The cat that Francis has sex with.
That was the most. Wait a minute. That was the most German I've ever heard Thor's.
That wasn't even. That's not a German name. That's some Egyptian name. But
I know, but it just felt so. It felt like you were being an American trying to do a German impression. Because
no, just trying to decipher all those vocals.
Also,
a lot of vowels.
I am now upset at this movie because I was like, look. The German culture is a beautiful thing. Not everything's related to Nazism.
Oh, no, 100%.
And this fucking movie proved me wrong.
And then the subtext hits you like a hammer. So
way too bad about this movie. Like Brand, you keep saying, but it wasn't that bad. I don't feel like we talked that bad about it, but just to make it clear, I really like this movie. So I don't know if this came across so far, but like I think the animation is great. The characters are all interesting. Like if they're used the right way, or if they like I don't want to say make sense because I think it made everything but one thing made sense, which I can get to in a second. But the characters were all very interesting. I want to know more about them, which is like, I guess the point you guys made already that it should have been like 20 minutes longer. It differentiates itself through the graphical violence. For some, it might be too much graphical violence, but yeah, if you don't put that in there, then it might just be another Disney movie. Aristocats or something. And it has a lot of interesting twists. I didn't see many twists coming. Should have seen the Mendel twist coming and the breadcrumbs that were put out there, but I was so suspicious of every character that was introduced at any time that I was like kind of like, oh, Felicitas is the murderer, and maybe it's Kong or Joker, but I found the twists still surprising enough for me to work.
Well,
that's the thing too, is I don't dislike this movie. I mean, I'm not going to be as big a supporter or champion or anything like that, but I don't dislike this movie. It's not even the worst movie I've seen for Movie Club this year. So I think it's not something I ever planned. You will find out later. But like, see, the thing is, like, there's worse movies I could watch, but like, the thing is, like, I don't feel like ever watching this movie for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like, a lot of this movie feels like a bit of like a cliche to me. Because, like, yeah, I enjoy the buddy cop aspect between Bluebeard and like Francis, but I feel like I could watch a lot of noir like detective movies from like the '90s or '80s or like even beforehand,
But wait a
and
minute,
still get like the
That's
same
what-
kind of vibe from it.
Yeah, that's what makes noir. Like, there's certain genres you have to do those tropes, or else it's not that genre.
And I think it kind of fit too, because Francis is a tuxedo cat. You could relate that to the detective jacket, and the enforcer is Bluebeard, who was a Maine Coon going up against
the other thing
kinds
is
of other riffraff.
well, because the other thing is the whole like whenever his owner gets writer's block, they move to another place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that is an easy setup. You could have done like 20 of these, like with different like them going to different neighborhoods, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, why did they move? It's like, oh, it's a
Which
common
I can
trope.
appreciate. The problem with that is we wouldn't get Bluebeard again in the sequel. So I was like, that would suck. And I'm not even sure if he even lived, because he doesn't really show up at the ends, and he kind of is bleeding out a lot. So
He lives. The ending, I don't know why.
Survive.
That ending,
he does.
They cut it off in a weird spot because there's like what, like a minute of dialogue. Like there's a little bit more dialogue, then it goes into the end credits.
Mm-hmm.
Because from my interpretation, him moving slightly when they get out of the burning house at the end was like, okay, he's probably alive, just severely injured. But they don't make it any clearer, because Francis just goes into his moronic ending narration about humans and animals peacefully coexisting.
Like I said, there's more to that. They literally cut it off at the beginning of that speech.
And then it cuts to the Boy George credits song, which I don't know, I actually kind of like.
So now, did Boy George write this song just for this movie? Did they have the budget to hire Boy George for this song?
I think they got the rights for the song. I don't think he wrote it for it.
I was like, trying to find out. It looked like the song came out around the same time. I was like, was this written for this?
I gotta admit, that's a pull was getting the singer from Culture Club in the movie. Because
another little like Easter egg that was a clue, because Pascal was so like concerned about breeding and sex, where it's like his house was covered in imagery of sex. So all of a sudden when I saw it later, I'm like, oh, that made sense. Like there's nice little Easter eggs. And I don't think this movie would have been as well received if it looked different, because the fact that it does look like a Disney animated movie helps add to that story.
See, I would watch Secret of Nim as a palate cleanser after this. Probably could, actually. Because like it does, that also in the movie that has like a darker element to it, doesn't go as far as this movie does.
Just the first one though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes. The second one, by the way, definitely goes into genetic experiments like this one, but not as like worse as this does.
Well, I mean, you know what NIM stands for, right?
Well, no, but like this, it's a whole thing.
National Institution of Mental Health.
But I mean, like the second one legit has rats experimenting on other rats and people.
I know.
So.
Well, because which we should probably watch more Don Bluth, because the thing with Don Bluth, and I miss this, like, I think this is missing in current kids like entertainment. He wanted to introduce emotions, and like it's a safe place to introduce certain emotions like terror, fear, like especially fear of death. And yeah, because it's like I feel like this is not a kids movie, but I also don't feel like this is like, I get why it would be rated. I get why like not everyone wants to watch this movie, but it's like I wouldn't call this a hard R. Like this isn't like other movies.
No, it's not Fritz the Cat or Heavy Metal. It's just it's not for that.
No, it's not Shame of the Jungle either.
Like if you love cats, you'd probably not like this movie very much, because like they don't shy away from abuse.
Hence why Chambly is not here, because she's like, how much would I hate this movie? I'm like, you would hate this movie.
Did you watch
it? Molly was not a fan of the film overall. She thought it had interesting ideas, but the execution wasn't really there for her. And I'm still slowly easing her into the world of adult animated films. She, like many people, saw the simulated cat sex as unnecessary, even though, again, it's part of the source material and it makes sense for a noir story to have your protagonist be seduced by someone who's at the very least chaotic neutral.
Also, like that scene's a little awkward, but I've seen way worse sex scenes. Two, the kittens, like the kitten's pre-born death. No one talks about that.
Well, I did. I tried to. Because Solitaire, like I said, like, okay, Kong ain't the killer because no way Kong is killing Solitaire. So, like, that's another suspect off the list. It's like, okay, did they need to show that though? Because they don't shy away from like, oh, she was pregnant too, so that's even more awkward.
That's just even go into descriptions of that in the book too. Unfortunately, I think one of the things I'm most not looking forward to with the restoration, given what I've seen they're doing, is they're going back and getting it as close to the way it was originally envisioned as possible. So some scenes are going to be brightened, some is going to be updated with better stencil work, and I think the murder scenes are going to be a little bit more grotesque.
Yeah, the Mendel nightmare scene is going to be very bad.
I was about to say, the murder scenes are bad. Like, good God, that scene's even worse now, knowing it's Mendel.
It's
like, knowing that connection.
Mounds and mounds of cats.
Yeah, falling apart.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this either way, not just for nostalgic purposes. It's a rather unique film, even in adult animation, but I'm not the biggest fan of them going to the point of restoration where they recreate things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and additional sound effects. I wonder what kind of splatter they put in.
Well, my guess might be updated cat sound effects too, like just a hunch.
It also could be the like that track is damaged, so they had to update it too. Because, like, especially I know on the anime side, there have been times where it's like, we will never get this again. We destroyed the originals. Enjoy what you got. Then all of a sudden, like, we moved 3 boxes in storage and found the originals. So
yeah, as a Doctor Who fan, I am well familiar with that, my friend. One day you just find all these lost episodes in a subsidiary station in Nigeria somewhere.
That's why preservation of media is important, which is why I'll be sad if the English dub isn't on this Blu-ray, because even though I personally am not a fan of the English dub, I think it should be included in with this just for comparison's sake, because there is a lot you can glean from the German versus the English side of it. And it's I don't want to be lost media. Like, for a lot of people, the English version was all you could find on YouTube, like in full.
I posted in the comments because I wanted to dig while we were talking about it. Deaf Crocodile was not able to get the rights to the English dub, so the original will not be included.
To the same problem that we had. Maybe they weren't able to identify who did the dubs back in '96, I believe, 2 years after it was released. The dub came out and we weren't able to identify the actors, so maybe they weren't either, and no one knows where the rights are. I'm sure they don't want to get into either the risk of publishing it and then someone coming out of the woodwork saying you are not allowed to, or they actually weren't able to get a deal on them.
Well, I won't lie.
This already obscure movie already gets a legal battle going into it with already terms of controversy. It probably doesn't need, given it's already controversial when you dig deep into it.
They'll sell more copies that way.
True. Also,
sometimes.
Yeah, but it can also open the door to legal battles that can ruin a small company like that.
Go ahead, Josh. You were saying?
I honestly forget what I was going to say.
It would be a shame for this company to face any of those legal issues as well, because they are so dedicated to the restoration of the films that they license that they're willing to, whereas for say you wanted to license a Disney movie to show in a public forum or theater, that could be thousands upon thousands of dollars. For a Blu-ray quality film from Death Crocodile to be showcased, it's only $150. For an even more high definition version, it would be $250. So they're reliant upon the sales of their media.
So after saying after December, I can rent a theater somewhere and just pay $150 to show this 4K movie and charge people.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. You have the ability to contact one of their representatives and license the movie for a public showing. It's pretty
because
cool.
we have the Fox Theater here in Atlanta, and every summer they do like, I think it's called like the movie, like the Summer of Fox. They'll play classic movies like Back to the Future, Indiana Jones. Like they even have a day of just Looney Tunes, and it's like, yeah, tickets are like $10 or something. Like it's a fairly cheap ticket. I think it's even $5. So that's one of those things that helps theaters a lot, because it's like, I don't know if I want to go see this movie. I don't know if I want to go see that movie. Oh, I love Back to the Future. Let me go. I'll spend X amount to go watch it on the big screen because I know I enjoy this movie. So
yeah, let me put it in the comments because I found it through a message board, but they actually have it on their official website as well.
Also, I was going to say the only hard thing I have, if I see something like Cowboy Bebop, I saw originally the dubbed. I can't watch sub version of that because I'm like, that's not how Spike sounds like.
Yeah, so, I'm like that too. Like if I tried watching the German version of this now, I'd be like, well, Bluebeard sounds different than I'm used to, even though it's a name actor in Germany. It's not like somebody I'm familiar with, so it wouldn't be as topical for me, I guess.
I am glad though that Torsten, you enjoyed it and got to like live some of your childhood with. It's like, I know this actor.
Oh yeah, no, they were old when I was young, so I don't. Yeah, I have no idea how they got them. Maybe, probably the resume of the director and what his previous work it speaks for itself that he got all of those big names. There were big names back then. That they all agreed to making this movie. I mean, also artistically, it might have been interesting for them because it's something different, right? Like it's more artsy. German cinema isn't. I mean, it's more artsy, but also, how should I say this? It has less production value, and you can tell. So most of them aren't as good in animation, though. Again, the other movies he made are all, or TV shows, some of them, all with either big names or adaptations of comics. Like Werner first was a comic book, and that's like an adaptation. It got like four movies. There might have been some later direct to VHS releases. I don't know, but those were huge. And the Ottos Ottifanten is basically a creation of one of the most famous comedians in Germany that created like little elephants that became a TV show later on, and like it's a whole universe and a whole TV show. No, Ottifanten.
I was like,
not Bavar.
I was like, do not tell me Bavar's connected to this. Like,
no, but the fact that this gentleman was responsible for other movies that I've seen, but didn't know he was responsible for this film, just it creates a larger world, because he also directed 2 Pippi Longstocking films in the 90s and was responsible for Momo and produced one of the most well-known Old Republic fan films back in the day. So that to me is pretty cool.
Yeah, because looking at his stuff, it looks like, probably because it pays the bills, like a lot more kid,
I gotta say the other movies, yes, they were more targeted and watchable by kids, but they had also a lot of adult humor in them.
Well,
I remember
Which fits
watching
German cinema.
They clean up, yes, but animated like Kleines Arschloch and Der kleine Punker. There are even I remember some of those watching as a kid. And I was like, it's probably. I don't know if I should watch. I mean, it was like nothing crazy, but like just cursing. I think it was very strong cursing, which in Germany isn't a problem. You can drop the F word on TV, isn't not a problem. There's a famous interview with Eminem who goes on a German TV show and just starts cursing because he knows it's legal, and the TV host is like celebrating him because it's like, yeah, you can do this here, and he's just dropping F bombs and everything else on live TV because it's not a problem in Germany.
So
that, yeah, no, go ahead.
The English version was only released on VHS in Australia and in Thailand.
That makes sense.
And I think the dubbing came from the UK. That's why they don't have Australia. That would have been horrible if the English dub had Australian accents. But I think the UK produced it and released it in Australia.
Well, then I've been asking the question, where's it set in? Because I don't think they even say, at least as far as I know, like where this is at.
I'm assuming
Germany. No, it's Germany. It's just the translate, like the dub. I mean, the dub, the creators had probably no idea this was ever going to be dubbed into English. It happened 2 years later. So the movie's creation has nothing to do with the releases in Australia and Thailand.
Also, I know this was set in Germany because Gus is wearing socks with sandals. And that is the real crime.
Okay. That's another thing too. Is like Gus, I don't know why Francis is being so mean to him, because Gus is like, hey, I know this trip has been rough on you, buddy, but here's like your favorite record. And it's like,
he's the happiest
like
guy
he's just
ever.
like yeah, it's like, why is Francis being such an a-hole to his owner for? Like, I get cats, like, yeah, the stereotype. It's like, wow, like
nice
already going like, yeah, like he even says like, oh, Archie, he's his only friend besides me. I'm like, geez, dude, calm down on your owner a little bit there.
See, that's what doesn't make sense to me either, because my grandmother had told me that Archie was Gus's boyfriend, and the English version implies that they're just friends. It doesn't really matter to the overall plot because the humans.
But it's also
really absolutely that was if not
American 90s getting rid of gay relationships. No, they would never do that. Now let's talk about Sailor Moon's cousins.
They don't even show Archie on screen. They just show his feet, and that's it.
I don't think it was not implied, and it also for the remaining tone. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. There, this is probably the most homophobic movie we've ever reviewed, and we've reviewed Taxi Driver 2 months ago. This one was released 20 years later, and it's more homophobic than Taxi Driver.
In all fairness, From Dusk Till Dawn was not that was because he's like, "What are you, two lovers? That's my son."
Well, when you think about who the author for this is, yeah, it doesn't really age well with that.
But it's not, again, the adaptation, the movie adaptation doesn't have to follow the novel. I think they tried to.
Well, no, but like he co-wrote the script for this too.
Okay, so I didn't know he was working on the movie and like helped create, because some of the dialogue there went like by Kong, like when I watched this in German, I was like, holy crap, this didn't age well. I was like, what was it in 94? Like Germany was pretty open already in 94.
Well, I think like
this is brutal. Like
I was thinking like in my head while we were talking about like the difference between like different languages and kind of stuff like that, and like what they've all worked on. I'm thinking like, a detective noir with animation doesn't sound like a bad idea. They're like, oh yeah, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I love that movie.
That's a bad movie than this.
But that's also a bit of an unfair comparison, because they're also like, one, it's cartoon characters, not like cats, even if it's animated.
They are cats in that movie.
Who Framed Roger
Yeah, but
Rabbit
there
also, I
is
think, handles
more.
like darker elements than this without going like too far off with it.
I will
It's
say,
been too long since I watched Roger Rabbit to be able to recall.
Oh my goodness, we
not.
would have to talk for hours on end about the behind
That's
the
its own
scenes
movie
of that
club,
movie.
honestly.
wow. But also the weasels and the sludge. Was it sludge? The green,
The Dip.
the dip, the dip. I will say this now. Granted, I agree. Like this hasn't aged well because I also forgot about the whole homophobia.
And they do it multiple times, like at least on
Yeah.
3 different occasions. It's like it came out of nowhere. Why you didn't have to make those comments?
I do feel like it was an easy way to make Kong not likable.
See, that's why I asked Torsen, because even in the German version, Francis is kind of dismissive of Gus. And obviously, at 10 years old, you don't really understand that homophobia is a thing. But my grandmother had implied that one of the reasons why Francis is so dismissive of his owner is because of the relationship that Gus has with other people.
Yeah, I don't think, because it wasn't even obvious. It's nothing that I even thought about watching the movie until you guys just mentioned it like a minute ago.
Well, like,
that it could
English
be a
dub.
thing.
English dub only says like his best friend Archie besides me, Francis, but like that's all like lip service they give to that. As far as Archie and Gus go, that's about it.
I just feel like I did not think we'd spend this much time on Gus. I think it was like he's not really a character. I think it's just more like
he's more of
okay,
a plot device.
Yeah, but it's like Francis is going to do his own thing, so it's like him not like being buddy, but like he's like he's my owner. Let me go explore. I'm like that explains why he's going exploring and not just staying in bed all night.
I mean, you could argue a lot of characters aren't really characters in this. They're more just people who drive the plot along because Felicity's only on screen for one scene, immediately killed. The cat Francis has sex with is only on screen really one time to have sex. Joker is really on screen once.
If you're watching, man, please edit this earlier. We could make a drinking game out of how many times Fran brings up that stupid.
I'm making a point here, though, where like the characters like here who are supposed to be framed as important only have like one scene. Like Joker only has like one scene where he's actually speaking, and immediately is not even doing the chase. It's his like followers doing it.
The Gravekeeper.
Then you like, the Gravekeeper. Like Gus technically only has like one scene where he really talks so much.
I do think Gus, and in German it's Gustav. I think he's important though. In the beginning to establish the tone of the movie, because he's basically the opposite of Francis, where Francis sees everything negative, Gus sees everything positive and establishes this mystery. It's like, what is it? There's got to be something. Who's right? Who's wrong? Because they're saying contradictory things, and it's adding to the mystery element there. Well, is it a bad house, or is it really a freak house? Does it stink, or is it he's just a happy being, or doesn't see it, and is Francis too paranoid? Like, it opens a lot of questions of where we actually are, because you get Francis' narration and then Gus saying the opposite.
Also, we wouldn't get the whole Egyptian original cat thing without Gus.
Because
he is originally an Egyptian archaeologist, but he makes his money writing romance novels.
Pulp romance.
That's why,
novels.
okay, maybe that explains when I said earlier one thing that didn't make sense, how fast Francis figured out by reading the book, the whole thing, the whole back. So it's like, you come up with this in like 20 seconds, you solve the case and know about Egyptian cats and the history and genetics. And it's like, oh, of course, this is Mendel and this is the Egyptian and the backbreeding, he's backbreeding us. It's like, this was too fast and too quick. But yeah, maybe that explains it, because Gus is, like, Francis picked up on Gus's studies.
Or
that's the thing I'm also trying to pick up on this movie is like a time frame of this, because Pascal does note that like Francis has been in the neighborhood for like a short time, but at the end there's snow on the ground, and I assume they moved there like late fall. At least this, like, I imagine this all happens like in the span of like a week or two or a month. But it also is like, doesn't kind of line up with how certain events plays out, because it kind of goes so fast. that it's really hard to place like how long this whole investigation takes place.
Felidae, the long Halloween.
Oh God,
1
no!
year.
Don't bring that good movie into this.
See, okay, I'm gonna right there. James, clip this later. That is proof Brand hated this movie. He doesn't want to say he hated this movie, but he hated this movie because he just said, "Don't bring this good movie." We found a movie you hate.
Don't try and quote an actual good detective movie with this, where it's just mostly has nothing to do with the detective story.
This bad movie?
There
where
is
the
a
twist
lot
is
to
already
like about
obvious
this
by
movie.
the halfway point.
The English dub is not something to like about this movie. It again, I don't speak German. It was translated to me the first time I watched it, but it sounds better in German. The characters don't sound as stilted, and I understand you had to do what you had to do to fit the lip flaps. Still, they could
And I have to stress this.
Better.
I only watched the English dub, so that is my only frame of reference for this movie. So if the German dub is better, I will take your word for it. Trust me. But I only watched the English dub, so I can only go by that experience. And it's not like I can go back and watch the English version. It is taken off of YouTube right now, unless I want to go on the way back.
Also,
that's the thing, though. It's like I would have to read subtitles, so I'm basically watching in English in some fashion, anyways.
But it's different. It's not about the language; it's about the correct translation.
Like, I mean, if I can't understand German, I can't really follow the story unless I'm reading or unless I'm just following what happens on screen.
The English subtitles are completely different than the English dub. Like that's why I said earlier, the English, if you have the English dubbed on now, you can't anymore. But I tried yesterday, or I did yesterday for a while. I literally
posted the link.
English dubbed on with the, I don't know if that one has the archive.org has the subtitles. Okay, but the subtitles aren't on YouTube. It wasn't just like the YouTube transcript writing what was said. It was the actual subtitles from the movie.
Yeah, it's literal translation.
And it was the literal German translation from German, and completely not fitting the English dub. So if you read the subtitles, you're closer to the original than listening to the English dub.
Brand, it's like you went on the grand tour when what you needed was a little Dan in your life. It's okay.
Wow, I got that reference. Also, here's the other thing. Y'all are acting like this is gone forever. I guarantee you someone's making up a new YouTube channel in like 2 months from now. That's going to be back up
half a year after the 4K.
That's the thing. It's hard to tell. See, it's hard to tell because like I feel like copyright strikes are like, well, as soon as they start taking down channels and like videos left and right, people start like, well, I guess I'll wait 3 months, but then that's like not a guarantee either.
No, but you just like
create a new email address.
Yeah, it's also because, like I said, I've watched this a couple times. It's never been off the same channel. Like it's never been like, oh, let me go back to this chestnut.
Well, I think from the time we had, I won't say announced, but I think from the time we voted on this movie to be movie club, there was like 3 different links posted in like the chat of where they'll watch it. And I think all 3 got deleted immediately after they got posted.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad it was on as long as it was. Literally 24 hours ago, it was taken down and we all had watched it at this point. Imagine like being 3 days away, no one's watched it. It's like, okay, let's change the movie. Because
they must have a member of
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles it is.
Somewhere.
I will say this. I do feel like artist companies, they deserve to get paid. But when you got something like this, where it's like there's no legal way to obtain this, and even like with this new version coming out, it doesn't have the English. So it's this kind of weird where it's like you don't want people to enjoy this, and there's no legal avenue. Like it's that weird gray area.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like the sense of preservation. Like right now, I'm saying all this stuff from the English perspective, but it's not like anybody who's watching this when this movie club gets posted is going to be able to go like fact check anything I say or double check themselves because you're lucky to find clips of this on YouTube for the English dub. And that's me going off memory of 24 hours, and I'm trying to decide if I like hate the movie or like the movie or just think it's just okay. I'm still trying to figure it out.
According to Josh, you hate it.
Well, Josh thinks I hate most things he likes, so that sounds different to me.
Also, no matter what happens, no matter how many copyright strikes, I almost can put money down that effing sex scene will always be up on YouTube.
And other sites.
To be fair, that is like one of the more memorable parts of the movie, for better or worse.
Not compared, like, I honestly kind of forget about that compared to the nightmare scenes, like, and
It comes out of nowhere.
Gutting a cat.
Oh.
Literally seeing acid drip down a cat is less memorable to people than just cats screwing.
Everything, like the skull, the baby, like the kittens.
Yeah, literally watching the brains melt after being.
Not to mention a 30-second static shot. Oh boy, of like a cat being dissected on a table. Like, what in the actual snuff film am I watching?
Also, because I have a friend who she has a doctorate in microbiology. So like they use like genetically altered mice, like she does some of this, but it's like there are so many rules behind that. And like one of the big ones are it's like before you do any testing, you have to euthanize them so they don't feel any pain.
That's another thing too. Why test on cats first?
I think the implication was he was going around gathering what he could, and cats were around. Like
It
this
was a
wasn't
budgetary restriction.
Yeah, this wasn't
Okay.
like on. Especially he was up like in an attic. I got the idea like he fudged a lot to get the budget, and he like knew like this was shady shit. Like
Yeah, because
He
you
was
can't say
getting
lab
drunk.
rats don't exist. Because lab rats are like, you can't say lab rats don't exist in this movie. Because there's literally like a scene or two where lab rat or like rats are just like lying around getting killed by Francis and Kong.
Well, the difference though is, hey, going back to the thing, because lab rats, you have to get a certain kind of breed because they don't have, they're like genetically clean. You can't just use it. That's why also you can't just like use any animal off the street because they won't be a good base.
True, and they also did have like a line where they said they had their funding cut back. But I'm also like,
Times too.
it is just kind of like an odd thing in my head when I was thinking, like, so why was cats like their first, like, let's test this?
Brandon, you don't have any
Actually,
homeless cats around you, do you?
God, I hope not.
No, here's the thing. You like, because in my neighborhood, we have a bunch of them because they breed like rabbits.
We have.
I mean, I have cats. There's cats around here that are like outside cats, but they're like they have a home.
No, I was about to say because we have straight up homeless cats. You see kittens like it's like the thing is too, especially if they're not neutered, they breed a lot. Like, so I would not be surprised that evil scientist dude had a vast collection of test subjects.
What I hate is when he said like, "Well, we had a mascot cat," or like we said who's like our prime like test subject. I'm like, oh dear God, I see how this is going.
Well, and on that note, the ending to me didn't make any sense because it was not mirroring the tone of the movie. It was all this happy ending, like, okay, now it's good. I have my girlfriend. I've got this chick here, and maybe one day this lesser species, less intelligent species, which are humans, maybe we can live together peacefully. It's like that wasn't the topic of the movie. It wasn't humans against cats. It was none of that. But that being the quintessence, the last sentence of the movie, I did not like the ending and how it didn't mirror the tone of the movie.
Yeah, that rubbed me the wrong way earlier with my rants.
It was like, let's wrap this up. Let's have something smart to say so we don't just have to show a sunset.
No, in the book, it implies that
humans are bad.
is haunted by his experience, and he has to hold close the secret of what actually transpired.
You see, that would be such a better ending.
That would have been way better than what we got, where it's like, oh, well, life goes on. Anyways, I'm back to do what cats do, I guess.
But I was going to say, what's interesting is like Pascal, because like he was trying to undo, it seemed like he was trying to undo like anything humans had to do with cats to go back to like the original. even though that's technically a lie because cats domesticated themselves.
Mhm.
Like humans created all dogs. Cats are still found in the wild. Like Abby here, there's still a version of her out in the wild, like in the actual wild.
There's a little small cat that's like called one of the deadliest like cats in the world. It's like yay big. So it's cute
Also-
though.
This movie wouldn't have worked with any other animal, maybe with dogs, but dogs and cats. Otherwise, I don't.
If it was dog, that
Cats
such a
and
big
dogs
doggy.
living together, mass hysteria.
Squirrels. Would have been so much better with squirrels.
Oh my god, this movie's just cats and dogs, just with a detective bit.
Oh my word.
I won't lie, like I don't need a sequel to this, and it's like I said, I could easily see someone writing a bunch. I don't know if they would have been as good. Yeah, it just sucks because in some ways, like I wish we could have just got like 20 more minutes of film. And not just like one chunk, just like 5 minutes here, a couple. Because it's like I think we need one more scene with like Pascal and Francis, and then you got to show like I feel like the other thing with a murder mystery, even if it's like psychic abilities, you got to give a hint about that at some point that like the audience can kind of go like, oh wait, is that what's going on here? And then you explain it.
Yeah, I would change the ending because that did not wrap up the whole thesis of the movie at all for me. And for me, it kind of made it all fall flat on its face a little bit. As far as like, okay, that wasn't what it felt like this whole past hour was building up to for that conclusion.
That feels like a studio being like, yeah, we kind of, how do we make this for kids? Like, let's wrap this up with the kid version.
It's more maybe if it was made somewhere else, maybe by the German. I mean, Germany is such as is Hollywood. Movies have to have a happy ending. There are maybe 1% of movies out there don't have a happy ending, right? And those stand out because of it. But the vast majority of movies have to have a happy ending. You have to have something satisfying, even though that wasn't a satisfying ending either. But you have to have something where everything is good in the end. And I think that being a movie from the 90s kind of mirrors that. Like, it's like, now we have to have good, happy ending, even though we just massacred cats left and right for the last hour.
I kind of hate how Pascal is like treating Francis as like this new cat. Is like, oh, you're the only one who's going to get what I'm going for here. So that's why like he's like trying to like suggest in the beginning, like maybe somebody's trying to like send a message to whoever is finding these bodies of like what they're like trying to, what their mission statement is.
But that's part of the genetic breeding. It's like, because he's the right cat to breed with. That's why like he's inviting him more into his, like, you're smart enough and you have the right genes. Like, that's again the Nazi combination, the smart mind in a strong body. Like, you can be, I can talk to you at the same level because you are smart and I respect you. It's not that they like, oh, we use those as experiments, because also for the Nazis, the test subjects, the good one, or like the Aryans, were like held higher and they were treated differently. And in that case, Francis was that, like, he appreciated him in a weird sense. And wanted him to understand what he was doing, because he felt he would get that appreciation back as well, because he was so smart, and because he was smart, he was selected. It's kind of the double effect.
Which I hate how Francis wasn't really. It felt like Francis was less disgusted by that whole rationale than I think he should have been, because he's like, well, I'm disgusted by how you thought I was like, or like this whole process and why you thought you had to do it. He's like, I'm just going to erase all evidence of this thing happening too. I'm like, why? Like, it's legit evidence right there, and you just have to just click the delete button on it.
Okay, but he continues the breeding.
Well, no, there's
well, it was intended.
I can play devil's advocate here. One, he's about to die, like we all know, because he's got cancer, so his days are numbered. Two, what justice system is there? Like, you don't have cat court.
We don't know.
Well, apparently we can have cat suicide cults, so maybe there is cat court. I don't know. It's an animated movie that's also thinks they're detectives. Like here's the thing, you can't say, well, they can't have this, but then they also do this other thing that is very much societal.
I feel
Because
like
you can't
cults
say,
were
well, they
around
can't have
before
cat
cat
court,
cults.
but also have like cat religions, cat suicide cults, like in their own like thing. Like you can't say they can't have one thing, but then you have the other.
Cults were around a lot before the modern day court system.
But like, if they could, it stands to reason if they could have like a cult and religion based around cats that they only understand, they can have like court systems too. They legit have like a whole meeting and debate of like, okay, here's what we have information about the killer. I can't give you the truth of like who the killer is, but I can maybe shed some light on this whole situation. It's like a
What's the
town
currency?
meeting.
In the rescuers, they have the mice United Nations. So
Oh, sure. Yeah,
The
let's bring
Rescue
in a
also has
whole
Cessna,
different
too.
franchise. Also, The Rescuers has more nudity than this movie ever did.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
that's
there's
something
a
you have to
Swedish
look for.
porno that plays in the background.
It has more. I'm just stating facts.
well, they're not.
You have to
drawing
freeze
certain
frame that.
holes
You're
on-
not actually, you have to look for it.
Just saying.
At the end of the
Also,
movie.
I like how we're now debating. It's like, so what's the cat currency since they have a court, if they can have a court system?
I think what we're all saying is eventually, if the story had developed, we could have had more black sad style development than what we got in this movie.
But the thing
I'm
is,
just saying this movie seems like it wants to have his cake and eat it too. And it's like, okay, you can't say, like I said about the computer thing, like I get your devil's advocate about like, well, he only has 6 months to live. He's obviously not going to build up a database in 6 months. Do it. Like, okay, that makes sense. But it's also like, what was he expecting Pascal's reaction to do? Just sit there and take it while he's deleting all the information? Of course he's going to try and attack him.
That database was thorough, though. So I did pause a couple of times. Like each cat has a legitimate entry with like a whole backstory. Like you should put that backstory in a movie at some minutes. But like those cats had a backstory, and like that wasn't translated. But like in German, it was like, yeah, but okay, though. Like where were they born? Where were they
base.
like?
Wait a minute. I have to point this out. Horsten, you're surprised that the German animated movie had a efficient system. Like that's what the Germans are known for.
Yeah, I mean it's
also
all categorized.
The poor guy who owns that house, by the way, because I imagine if he wasn't in that house already, imagine just coming home like, what the heck? Why is my house on fire?
No, but the house
also Felicity's owner. Felicity's owner comes in and just finds her and just finds their cat decapitated. Like, I imagine is like the real horror of this is the stuff you don't get shown from the human perspective, because that's a whole movie on its own. Is like what the humans have seen in this movie in the background.
Doesn't happen by itself.
Yeah, like I wonder, like they don't show it. I'm probably sure it's in the book too. Like, what the heck does Felicity's owner even do upon seeing their cat disemboweled on the floor? Like that is like a whole other movie on its own. Like this other background movie happening while this one's going on.
Well, I would hope that Joshua would have performed his duty handed down to him and removed any of the corpsey scenery by that point.
I was going to say, because if it was
out the blood stains of the carpet and all of that.
He's the cleaner and the crypt keeper.
I was going to say, because what's interesting, if that happened outside and in the U.S., you would assume it was a coyote. But I do not know what predators are in Germany.
No, but they wouldn't decapitate a cat and then leave both body parts there. Coyote would just pick them up, eat them, and leave. Like
no, but I'm saying like some of the murders, like
other animals that could have done this. No, I don't think.
That's why they kept saying it was a human.
German wildlife is pretty tame. There's not much. The worst thing that can happen to you is you face there are no bears. There are no bears. There are no wolves. There's nothing. It's a wild
There are
boar.
wolves. There are lynxes over there. So another cat could have killed him.
Another cat.
Like
foxes.
Joker's just found
don't
like
attack you.
Joker's found on a top shelf, like peacefully just sitting there like dead, and you're like, okay. And what actual animal managed to get him up on the top shelf and then kill him?
A lynx or a badger.
Huh. So according to this, you all do have wolves. Yeah,
Nah,
boars.
there's like one wolf sighting in the last 10 years or something like that in a very rural area somewhere. There are no wolves in Germany.
You do have
Also, have to
boars.
think this is in the city, right? Because this
It's in
isn't
the
like
city.
countryside.
No, this
the
is
only thing in the city is like wild boars, especially in Berlin. There's in the northwest or in the west
Well,
there are wild boars, groups of 20 wild boars.
APB
They're
Alan,
dangerous,
Timon
but
and
they don't
Pumbaa.
rip cats about.
look. As a
When
German
APB
expert,
Alan, Timon and Pumbaa. The guy suspect.
as an expert on this country I've never been to, if you go 5 miles any direction, there are haunted woods with witches. Any part of Germany. Prove me wrong.
There are many woods, but they are
I'm saying 5 miles in any directions, you go into woods that are full of witches. Prove me wrong, Germany. Prove me wrong.
Well, we prove you wrong about a lot of things in this movie club so far.
I'm just kind of upset where I'm like, no, guys, we got to look at this as
Googled
not.
this. No, you're right. There are wolves in Germany, but they have returned.
Dawson's right.
No. Wolves have been returning to Germany since the late 1990s. So this movie's from '94. There were no wolves in '94.
No, it was part of the
returning
it was part
in
of the
1990.
restoration program that Germany was participating.
So they came
in.
back
I think it's
recently.
I think it's stated that they're gray wolves, so they're a little bit different than what we see here in America.
Also, I will say this: the fact that you're not putting respect on the boars, because boars would gouge an animal and leave.
Like people are like
on the top shelf.
I have faced wild boars in the forest, and I was like slowly backing up because they are dangerous, especially with their how they called, I don't know, the little piglets.
Also,
the pigs,
Fran,
right? Piglets.
We've got them in Texas here too, and they are not to be taken lightly.
Also, Bran, to explain the whole top shelf with the cat, witches.
Supernatural.
Look, if you had to do a wizard did it approach, I'm going to say that's just false.
Every German will get that joke, but I would blame Bibi Blocksberg. There's a famous witch in Germany. You can Google her.
I blame
Krampus.
Say it again, Steve.
I blame Krampus.
I know. That's the South. That doesn't happen where I'm from.
See, what kills me about that is like Pascal is also not like a lightweight either. So I'm thinking like there doesn't seem like a whole room in that top shelf. So did he cut him like on like the bottom of it, like on the floor, and then Joker climbed over the top shelf and like this, like I'm just gonna sit here and die now. Like it's just found. I don't know logistics of it. It's like,
well, you saw the experimentation enhanced him. A lot of the experimentation involved cutting open the brain to see if that chemical would heal them, and instead it enhanced several of his abilities to the fact that to the point that he developed psychic and telepathic abilities.
Basically,
including able to have English.
Captain America.
Bring that shit up there to the top shelf.
Okay, I just
also apparently able to communicate with humans, although the guy could have just been severely drunk.
I thought he was just severely drunk. I thought he was just out of his mind being like, you and me, cat.
Listen here, I'm going to have a super race of cats now. I'm going to open the door and you and me are about to fight. So,
also,
and then he gets killed.
I'm going to point this out. Bran, you are dying on this hill of like, how did he kill this cat on the top shelf and not how did he create a database?
Okay, here's the thing. There's a lot of things about this movie that don't make sense the more you think about it. And I had 24 hours to think about it because that's all I can do is think about this movie is like, okay, I want to like this movie more than I do, but there's not a whole lot of it I actually like.
So
I told you
with a cat impression on you.
What?
I appreciate your jokes, James.
That was awesome, James.
But that defines what defines a good movie. The more you think about it, the better it is. Good or
There's
bad.
a lot to think about. From
I will say this: are there major like
German culture to how they try to develop it as a noir story and then ran out of budget or time or both, and it became a happy rainbow-filled movie at the end there?
So
after he gutted.
My point on this was like, the more I think about it, the more stuff doesn't make sense. So it's not exactly winning me points there.
The problem though is like almost any good movie, like not all of them, but a lot of them have big plot holes where you kind of go like, well, why did they do this? Why did they do that? And some of it's just like, it's the easiest answer because it's like, yeah, how did Joker get up there? I don't know. It's cats. They can jump up quite a bit. So in my mind, maybe they both went up there. He got, then
Me, it's
Claudius
probably
jumped down.
the likely story is pacing reasons because they did probably were like, oh, you check from top to bottom. Well, I'm pretty sure Bluebeard wasn't actually that thorough. I don't
Well, yeah.
see him jumping up anywhere up high. He didn't want to jump up on the tree while Francis is sitting there going like, oh, I guess I might fall to my death on this thing.
Because that's the whole thing, though. Because like when you're asking, it's like, why did he trust Francis? Because Bluebeard's like, no, this is fine. Why are you questioning this? With Francis, it's like, let me look at this at a different angle. Oh, now I got the answer.
Yeah, like I'm sure it's just pacing reasons. That's the actual reason. It's just like when I think of like logistics of like how it even work, I'm probably putting too much stock into it. It's
Yeah,
like it's
because
just
now
another
you
example
start
of, like,
thinking about logistics, but John McClane can jump through elevator shafts, and that's fine. So this
Here's the
one is
thing.
way more realistic.
That's an action movie. It's not trying to be smarter than it is.
It's also a
And
Christmas
John
This is an
movie.
action movie.
John didn't become invincible until Live Free or Die Hard. He could
Look,
take a licking, but
there's
not
only
fully
one
keep
way.
kicking.
There's only one way we're going to solve this. James, put in the book club that we're all reading Felidae, and we'll meet in a month and discuss this.
I
I wish
am
there was
good.
a comic book adaptation.
I don't. Is it in the U.S.?
I'll just read
is there a
Catwoman
sequel?
instead. I'm already doing that.
Is there a sequel to Stray Dogs? I think there was a
Feral.
like
Feral.
a cat. Okay, I haven't read that one. Is
I haven't
that
either.
Have you? Have you guys?
I would wait.
I've
Yeah,
been
I would
enjoying
definitely-
it so far.
Is that
Really
Like
similar?
5
good
issues
story
so
arc.
far.
I need to
Similar
reach.
to Stray Dogs? Similar to Felidae?
Not really. It
Neither.
kind of reminds you of what was that movie was?
Without giving the twist or plot away, that probably is in there.
I feel
Not
like
much. Let's see.
I feel like Stray Dogs is closer to Pride and Prejudice.
I think Stray
Maybe
Dogs
I
is
think-
very
yeah.
close to Felidae.
I haven't read
like,
Stray Dogs.
Yeah, Stray Dogs is definitely closer to Felidae.
Okay.
But the closest comic we're going to get to Felidae is the Katzen comic version of Felidae.
See, I heard Stray Dogs and I'm thinking like the home invasion movie. And like, no, something different probably.
No, something a little bit different.
Haven't you? Wait, you've been watching NMC. You haven't seen those covers and stuff?
No.
Oh,
like,
you probably
damn.
have.
Because it's
It's
literally
been a busy
like
month if I have.
Oh, there is
Man.
a comic book about this.
it's been
Yeah.
like a year.
It is?
Yeah, I found it.
Yeah. Katzen comic.
Katzen comic. How do I
I'll
just
send
learn
it to
about that
you.
now? I should have read this. Oh, yeah, I see it now. Should have read this leading up to. We should all have read this leading up to the.
I didn't know
Okay,
there
don't
was
say
one.
should have. We could barely find the copies of the movies. You think we could find the comic?
Yeah, I know.
I found
especially- You found them? They're probably somewhere online.
I sent it to you. I found.
The
But they are
comic
written
takes
by the
some
author of the book.
liberties that the movie doesn't. Francis isn't a tuxedo cat. He's an orange cat in the.
I was going to
The
say,
cover has him from the movie, but probably inside the book it changes.
The artwork inside
yeah.
the book is pretty
I see.
nice.
And both the comic and the movie kind of leave out one of Francis's other nightmares. I don't know why we didn't discuss this, but who is it? Not Purple Rain, Deep Purple. That's the cat's name. He has a nightmare about Deep Purple coming to him and starting to leave breadcrumbs for Francis to figure out who the murderer is.
what was the Deep Purple one?
Well,
Yeah,
Deep Purple's the one on the bike, I think.
Deep Purple's the one who was injured and was able to crawl up on top of the desk inside that garage.
What was the dream, though?
Smoke on the water.
It depicts Deep Purple's murder from his own perspective, basusically.
Because I'm not remembering that at all.
I found
It's not in the movie.
screenshot of
It's
that.
in the book.
Oh. Because I'm literally like in my brain, I'm like, No, I don't remember this.
No, it's not in the movie, and it's only in the book.
They do, like I said, they make, and I get it, you can't put everything in there, but they definitely make some interesting choices on which they left it, like what they left out, because it's like with someone being psychically linked is kind of a big deal.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to have that be an implication of a movie doesn't really give like it puts too much of a mystical spin on like what's supposed to be like a detective noir story, if not surrealistic horror, if you want to go into that route too.
Because that's the
like,
thing. To me, I liked it because it felt a little more grounded. Like I never thought he had like I almost just thought he was just the cat that survived the experiments. Like there was nothing magical about him. It was just he was the one that lived the longest.
Oh, he's Captain America.
There are 8 books in this series.
8 comic books, or you
No,
mean
8
novels?
novels.
I thought there were only 2.
I just
Wow.
want I just want to
8
point
of
out
them.
we can now tell James is part of the conversation because he's finally doing research. Like I said, because it's an easy setup where it's like to start another
More
book.
I can read. Thank you, James.
You should have it done by next week. I want an essay about it.
I want a box set, and I guess they are just like a Gus moving around, like we earlier
Wow.
said.
Are they all called Felidae or?
They had German names.
I am shocked by that revelation.
Yeah.
It looks like the first book was 89. The second was a year before the movie. There was a 6-year break, and then they've come out every 3 to 4 years after that. Wow. I had no idea.
I'm just on the author's German Wikipedia page, and his lawsuits against him have more sub-paragraphs than his actual writing.
Oh yeah, some of the stuff he's been involved in, it's pretty gross.
They all English
Yeah.
copy of it online. You can find English.
It does suck because like Cerebus, like there are certain titles where it's like, even if it's like, I'll take Cerebus, it's not always the best one, but it's crazy because it's like we wouldn't be talking without that book. But that author went so batshit crazy that no one mentions it.
This is probably why I didn't want to read the comic or anything more to do with like this world that is set in, because I don't really want to support the author in any sort of way if this ends up going to their pocket.
Yeah, you're making this up now. It's good to have the moral high ground in hindsight, but you didn't know this going in.
No, I did bring up that like, hey, he said some like pretty hateful stuff leading up to this. I did say that.
Yeah, but we're saying you have never. Can't imagine you being like, I really want to read Cerebus, guys.
No, I don't want to actually.
See?
So
also, if you want to read Cerebus, it's in every used bookstore. I almost guarantee you can find that series.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, I'd rather spend my money on something else. So,
yeah, Brand, it's not always about you. I know you think it is. That was just a general advice for the audience.
I didn't say it was either.
Yes, you did.
I didn't say it was about me. I'm just saying my own opinion.
There's 7 sequels. Yeah, no, this
For the general audience.
Yeah, I put a listing for the German Amazon for the comic in the chat for you, Torsten.
Well, it's kind of interesting.
Thank you, but I'm good, and I'm not to support the author. I'm also not going to put that into the YouTube description. But
well, it's also interesting because like you have like Parker, like a lot of novel series will have like a banner and then. With this though, because like the 4th book is called The Duel, it's like, yeah, that's not generic.
Well, the other ones don't. Salve Roma, Shantat, Philippolis. Philippolis sounds interesting. Is that like building an empire based on?
So, do they have swords?
Oh man, do we go like straight Dune with this with the worms?
And the last one is Göttergleich, which means equal to gods. So
That could have interesting implications considering the author.
I'm just curious how we go from like detective noir story to now we're gods now.
no,
Just
we're
going off the titles.
Dune.
the end solution. Let me see
The catnip must flow.
what years the lawsuits were, if they match the book public.
It does get infuriating though.
Or no, after.
It gets infuriating though, where you're like, man, I enjoy this. Let me find out more of this work. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's why I found like the movie didn't do a good job on like muting some of the. I mean, again, how much is a director at fault if they're translating bad ideas or like problematic and dangerous ideas from a novel to the screen, if they themselves don't, like how much are you complicit, right?
Well,
Because it's pretty obvious looking at all the stuff here that the author wasn't a good guy and or isn't. I guess he's still alive. Isn't a good guy and has the wrong political, or I guess it's not even political ideas, but just genetic misinterpretations of things. But then as how much is the director accountable? I guess it depends on how much the author was involved in the process. And again, those things didn't get revealed until probably 20 years after the movie came out. So
the hard thing is too, because it's like, I've written like some horrific stuff in Bang. It doesn't mean I believe in them or I should do them. It's just like, no, this is how these characters, like, this is the idea I want to get across. And this is how, like, I want to relate this in a negative light. So let me show it. The problem is you don't know with some people where it's like, no, I'm saying this was the good guy. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like, there's definitely like sometimes where some people want to attribute to what the writer is saying or what the character is saying is to what the writer is saying, like author tracks. Like, sometimes it's not the case, sometimes it is, and it's really hard sometimes to like have that line be like very firm in the sand. Sometimes it's just very blurry and it's hard to figure it out.
And
Like some people would call Tarantino racist because of like what certain characters say in his movies, even though you will have Samuel Jackson say, well, it's not racist because he's one of the more intelligent people in the movie. So like, it's not racist, despite what you're trying to read into it as.
And sometimes there's justice for what these creators do, but depending upon where you live, that justice can be short-lived. It took 10 years for this author to receive any sort of punishment for inciting riots and referencing the German government
What the hell?
incite in a pretty hateful manner. He recently got out of prison. He was sentenced after 10 years in February and was sentenced to 9 months.
Man, I just want to watch the cat film noir movie. I didn't realize.
Well, that's the thing. When I came to this, I was thinking, okay, so this is probably like a psychological thriller, like a cat movie. Then I watch it and we go down this rabbit hole. So I make Alice spin her head.
Well, that's kind of what we do in these movie clubs. Even last month with probably the most fun movies from an entertainment standpoint we've watched, we went down small rabbit holes.
Well, and also, it's kind of crazy too, because you wonder, like, how to word this. So, okay, like with Cerberus, it's like, did he always think this way, or did like he just have enough money where like some deep part of him went, now we can, like, because it's like if he was always broke, would this never have been a problem? Same with this like German author. It's like if this never took off, would we've not, like, if he wouldn't have the opportunity to do some of the stuff.
See, that's the thing though, is like, I don't want to say this again, it's like this is like the author thing. But it's also like, what I also have an issue with like the ending of Felidae is like, there's not too much demonization of what Claude Landis is doing. It's explaining what he's doing, but there's not very much demonization of what he's doing.
I feel like
would
the
make it
nightmare
feel.
scenes. I feel like those nightmare scenes really underline that demonizing.
Well, I mean, like that's the thing though, is it nightmares, but it's not actually like legit what's happening like in the waking world. It's just like nightmares like Francis is having. Francis, I don't think is saying enough about like how terrible of a cat that Claudansis is, and the ending line that he gives doesn't really tie that in together either. Because, like he says, like Orson said, the inner narration is more like, well, it seems like humans and animals need to learn how to live together peacefully. And it's like, that doesn't seem like the whole point of the movie because the people doing the genetic experiments are the exception and not the rule. And the cat that is going around spouting this whole like genetic discrimination thing is also the exception to the rule because they're also killing their own species. So they're not like above anybody else. Same as like the genetic people doing genetic experiments aren't above anybody else. We already have people doing peacefully coexisting because Gus is like one of the most kindest people in the movie, and Francis gives him crap like every other sentence.
You're assuming that Gus could be into some weird shit. He does wear socks and sandals.
Okay, here's the thing. If that's the only thing he's done as a crime, whatever.
Man, now I don't know how I feel about. Well,
I will take somebody wearing socks and sandals over being like completely like doing genetic experiments on stray cats.
I'm just saying, maybe the guy wearing the socks and sandals is doing the genetic tests on cats because of the socks and sandals.
That's one of the most German stereotypes, like the socks and sandals. Like
that's actually not, but I'm glad it is.
Dude, I do it, and I've never lived in Germany.
Not yet.
How many cats do you own?
It's learned behavior.
You might as well say people who wear Crocs jaywalk for fun.
I mean, look, don't bring up Crocs. There's a lot. Yeah, I do not. Crocs, no, they're doing deeper crimes. There's some more crimes with Crocs.
Oh my word! Overall, I'm glad we voted on this movie. Thank you, Josh, for recommending it. It was an entertaining trip down memory lane, and it helped me discover that there is something worthwhile in buying the 4K when it comes out next year instead of next month. I hope that the commentary on it helps resolve some of the mysteries that we've discussed here.
For $165, you can get it in December already as part of their quarterly shipment with a couple of other movies or so.
Yeah, I saw that. I think I just need that movie for now. Now, if they included Cat City alongside it, because that's another movie I've seen that I enjoyed, but I'd consider it. But
I haven't watched it. Has anyone seen The Wind Blows?
Nope.
Well, if we want another depressing movie, I got it.
Man, it's the holidays. I don't need depression. I work retail for a living. Give me something optimistic.
Fine, I'll wait till
Black
May.
Friday will be over in December.
No, holidays aren't over until I see my birthday. I'm sorry. It is
when's your
long
birthday?
months. January.
Well, James, you're welcome for that piece of information.
I already have it.
Oh,
You already
figures.
know.
Yeah, that's why. That's like last January was me versus James. What movie gets voted on for movie club in January?
No, and I will say this too, because it's like it's terrible when like the author is batshit crazy, especially like a movie like this. It's so many people that worked on it.
and there's some good, solid animation in this.
Mhm.
The
movie.
animation is good. It still holds up 30 years
Oh.
later. Like I have nothing bad to say about the animation at all. It's just the plot and the story and the characters somewhat that I take a little bit of fault with.
The animation was great. It was everything else with this stupid thing.
Well, that's the thing.
I hope
It's
for
not all
those of
just
you
one
who've
thing,
only
like-
watched the English version, that you're willing to give the German version a chance because it flows so much better with the voice acting.
I forgot to mention.
Here's the thing. It is well made, but I don't think it's well presented.
Someone's got to ship the 4K to Brand.
I will say this. I forgot to mention this. One part of the character I loved. Pong's two like idiot sidekicks were neutered, and they
Herman
both
and
have
Herman.
like crossed eyes. Like it was such a little touch that it's like, yeah, they were the ones that no longer have the balls, and they look like idiots.
Yeah. No, but I'm grateful for this movie choice as well, because it filled a gap in the long list of great movies by Michael Schaack. If again, that's how people pronounce his name. I know his works. I didn't know the guy behind it. If we ever come back to German animated movies, I would recommend Werner. And next, even though that's heavily based on wordplay and that's even trickier to translate into English, which is probably why I don't think it was ever released outside of Germany. But yeah, no, I really like this movie. I think
that's why like certain genres do better internationally, because with comedy you might need that word to play, like puns and stuff, whereas like horror, drama, even noir, it's like those are kind of universal.
Yeah, there's Asterix can't be translated. I know there's a different translation, there's a second translation, and there's the debate which one's better, but it's like, I also mostly know the German translation, which is still a translation from French, but it's still closer. There's this movie,
I prefer the British, because they make puns that make sense in English. So it's like they're not trying to translate the French. They're making jokes that make sense in their language. I'm like,
they can also use that kind of the dark sense of humor that like in the US you don't really see that often, and they have mastered that part. Whole Monty Python kind of tradition there that influenced the whole generation with that sense of humor.
Also, I'm gonna have to call you out on this, Torsten. No different backgrounds for you. No love of your homeland, with different, like with Taxi Driver, you had different backgrounds.
I mean, I'm wearing the Magneto t-shirt. I'm representing Germany more than Torsten is right now.
I tried, but AI gave me back some weird looking crap that I didn't really want to use. That's why no different backgrounds. But that's the master race.
Well, if you be up for it, if we vote for the Werner film, maybe AI can develop a better background for you. I mean, we have 4 films to choose from if we decide to go in a franchise direction.
Gotta go with the first one first. But yeah, I don't know if I'll do some digging and some research if there's a proper English translation out there. If I have to write the subtitles myself.
I have only seen the first one, again, thanks to my grandmother, and either the second or third one, whichever one was Eat My Dust.
The following
will literally hard code in subtitles if he has to, just to make me watch it in German.
I just like the idea of Torsten with a note card.
The other ones are different concept. Well, the first one is, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's like the creator creating the comic in the like as a movie. So it's like a nice concept. It's like the creator creates the animation, and it's actually the guy who created the comic. So the same guy, like imagine, I don't know, like a comic book writer, creator is actually the star of the movie. And in that movie, he creates that comic, but keeps failing. And so you get those different clips, those sketches, those different movies, those different characters in the movie, because it's like trial and error of what he's trying to present, while being the supernatural of like the witch, kind of like, you have to come up with the perfect comic, otherwise like this and this happens.
The Who?
No, that's a different band.
No, it's actually Rumpelstiltskin. So I don't know what the English translation is.
Any 5 miles, there's woods and witches, and he just.
The thing I remember the most from that first film was the motorcycle.
Oh yeah, that too. But then the sequels aren't actually this concept. They are actually just animated movies instead of this in between, like Roger Rabbit style, or like not even like it's half, because they don't cross over. They're just either real like live action or animated. Rumpelstiltskin. It's a fairy tale, blah, blah, blah. It's not a witch, technically. It is a
Bullshit.
poor
No,
miller's
no.
daughter who is able to spin straw into gold. Okay, that sounds witchy.
I love how, Torsten, you're like this. Josh, you're not right. Oh,
But
Josh
you're
is
also not
right.
wrong. No, it's from the Brothers Grimm, obviously. Folk tale. I don't know if she counts as a witch. I'll let
think
you
she
be the
does.
judge. I'm just gonna put this
I will
one
say,
in here.
because I've seen a lot of animation from Japan, a lot from America. It is fun because German, it's like there's a lot of rich cultures and history, and that's one thing I always enjoy about Felidae, knowing that was German, because it's like, all right, this is a different culture's take on noir.
I'll give this movie one thing. It's a lot to talk about because we talked for however long, like 2.5 hours about this movie. We talked about this movie twice as long as the movie is. You could literally watch the English and German dub in the time it takes for us to finish talking about it.
I mean, I went from this is not about Nazis to holy fuck, this is about Nazis.
The second
Josh
half is
learns about subtext today. We're working
first part
miracles here
is-
in Movie Club.
I'm just saying there's more to German history than the guys in leather.
Well, there most definitely is.
Oh, there is. Just happens to be the one German movie we watched has a lot to do with them doing genetic experiments. They're a little bit close to home.
I mean, as
Yeah.
Torsten just mentioned with his fable, Rumpelstiltskin isn't about Nazis. That's about stealing a child in exchange for spinning straw into gold.
That old
And you have
yarn,
to solve a quest in order to get it back.
that old chestnut, just
A
stealing
riddle.
children.
You just have to know her name, which there's lots of other stuff based on this. Just people don't know it because it's like if you can guess her name, you'll get the child back or get whatever other versions, whatever there is to be redeemed. It gets redeemed if you can guess the name. Rumpelstilzchen. No, Werner Beinhardt, a great movie. The sequels as well, but the first one, there are not that many movies that I can still laugh about after 10 times, 15 times watching the same movie, knowing the jokes, but still cracking up every single time I watch it, which is driven a lot by also accents and regional stuff, which is not. I don't think it can be translated, but I'll do some digging. If not, I have another German movie I'll be recommending here soon.
Torsten, I get it. I out-German you. It's fine. You got to live with it.
You open the door. You open the door to German cinema now. Now you got to just walk through it and enjoy.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm all for it because it helps me learn and indulge a little bit in my culture.
There you go. I already got two. Okay, I'll put them.
Look.
I don't know. December is they're not really Christmassy, which I'm okay with scrapping the whole idea of Christmas.
How many?
And I think at the very least, the first film would probably be accessible because I remember seeing it when I was looking for Felidae to see if I could import the home media release. For that, I remember seeing it on Amazon or something. I think they even released a remastered edition or something.
Well, to our 3 audience members, enjoy a lot of movies about witches and guys wearing socks and sandals.
Hey. We're starting to get more views on this thing. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
We're getting more than 3 viewers.
290 something on the last one. And that one wasn't even clear which movie it was about.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's part of the trick. You just need to put Brendan Fraser with the cast of From Dusk Till Dawn, and people are like, what the heck?
I'm telling you, a lot of
you
people
just put
found out.
2 photogenic actors in the thumbnail and Quentin Tarantino, and you get like a good thumbnail of it that gives people to want to click on it.
Also, a lot of people found out their sexuality because of the Mummy.
That's stuff you keep disturbingly often insisting on. So,
audience members, if you are watching this video, please comment below the description and tell us what you would like us to follow in the future.
There you go.
Also, please watch Felidae before you watch this insanity.
Oh yeah, it's good to
Yeah,
mention
because
spoilers, by the way.
none of this makes any sort of sense. Me saying this to you, none of this makes any sort of sense unless you watch this movie. So watch this movie first. I know we're saying this like 2.5 hours into us talking about it, in case you decide to watch this part first, oddly enough. But anyways, definitely watch Felidae first before you watch us talk about it and like discuss everything from Josh figuring out Nazi subtext to everything else in between, really.
Simulated cat sex.
And to get Brand's points, you got to watch the English dub that isn't available anymore.
And to
Gotta watch
to get Torsten's view, you have to watch the German. So technically, you should watch this like 3 times to be safe.
Yeah. For all I know, I could be a crazy person just thinking I hallucinated the thing or movie I just watched.
There's going to be a commentary track on the Crocodile release, which will be interesting because they have less time than us to talk about it. I don't know how they're going to rush through all of that stuff. Maybe they have multiple commentary tracks. I don't know, or just have it scripted.
Deaf Crocodile, if you find that your commentary is unsatisfactory, please contact Torsten to incorporate.
Oh, you can use it. You got my permission. Just use it. You don't need to contact me. Like just
viewers,
put it on
I just want every German person to go like, Josh is not right about the witches in the woods, and like 5 minutes later go, damn it.
And then realizing, yeah.
And viewers, if you find Torsten to be entertaining, please check out the other videos on his Literature in Pictures channel.
There you go. There's a whole playlist about movie clubs.
I'm really upset that I missed all the Nazi reference.
I go back and watch it again.
I will. Well, because I will say this, because like, let's go down this road a little bit. Because like, the one reason like U.S. like pardoned a lot of the Japanese is because we bought their human experimentations. So it's not just a German thing. Like, there's a lot of countries who've done some terrible things on humans.
Yeah, I don't think there's a country that didn't. It goes back to
Antarctica.
Leonardo.
That's a continent, but Antarctica, there.
Here's the thing: there's a lot of nuance and like, there's a lot of like deeper like connections that would take longer than we would have time to discuss about that.
Like I said, because I always thought this always reminded me of Rats of Nim, like the Rats of Nim with animal testing.
I think I prefer Seeger and them more, but
I haven't watched that one, but I'll go and watch it. With that, I want to thank you all for this month's movie club. It was a fun discussion that, almost twice as long. No, by now it has been twice as long as the movie. Thank you all. We'll agree on some cool movie for December to watch and discuss. And any final thoughts, quick thoughts before we extend this for another hour or so?
I agree with Josh. Brent hate this movie.
I'm going to point back on that real quick. I don't hate this movie. I don't love this movie.
Allegedly.
I just think it's okay. I just think it's okay. Listen, I know controversial opinion on the internet. Things can just be okay, and I can be okay with them being okay. I don't have to love it or hate everything I watch. I'm fine with just being like watching this movie and be like, all right, I had my hour and 20 minutes with it. I'm fine now watching it again.
And with that, I'm out of beer.
James, I appreciate you just being like, wasn't for me. I gave it a try. Nope. I do wish we'd get more film noirs with like cat. Like, I don't need a remake of this, but I like to see more of this idea.
Have you seen the movie Cats?
That's a musical.
We're waiting for the butthole cut. We're waiting for the butthole cut.